Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. We finally get started. We're getting quicker with this because Zoom has its own bit of fickle methods of operation. But if you can hear me, welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 334, economics. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, hit the notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. Also, as an FYI, we are not certified financial planners. If you want a certified financial planner, please go to cfp.net, look up one in your area. We do not give out financial advice here. We got a confirmation from Raining Woman. Thank you, Raining Woman. Good evening to you. We have maybe about 30 items on the docket. I'm going to try to fly through them as fast as possible. So I'll get started right away. I don't know if we'll be able to get to all of them, but we definitely should be able to get to the heart of the issue that we're going to be talking about here. Also, if you want to get on the panel, there will be a link in the chat. When you click on the link and you're in the waiting room, just make sure that you raise your hand so that we can acknowledge you and we can advance you to the panel. If not, you'll be sitting there for quite some time. All right, let's get started. All right, first item on the docket is from Forbes.com. If you're saving more money due to talks of a potential recession, you aren't alone. What is this stupid appetite? Put simply, Americans' relationship with money is broken. It's no secret that most Americans live paycheck to paycheck. That staggering statistic never ceases to sadden me. Unfortunately, widening income inequality is only worsening the problem. Over the past decades, bull market, the unemployment rate has steadily dropped as the market has reached record highs. But if you ask most Americans, you'd find that they haven't seen their financial prospects mirror the recovery they see on TV or read about in the news. With only slightly over half of Americans investing in the stock market, it's no wonder most aren't jumping for joy when the market increases. Headlines highlighting weak economic data are fueling fears of a recession, knowing that many Americans already don't feel financially secure. A potential recession would have devastating consequences. For that reason, now is the time to start making changes to prepare for a potential recession. MetLife recently conducted a survey and found that 40% of respondents have started saving more money to support themselves due to talks of a potential recession. The fact that many are talking or taking action is promising, but the fact is that the majority of respondents aren't. The first thing you need to do is make sure you have a cash buffer. Well, not necessarily cash, but money set aside that you can quickly access in case of emergency. I recommend using a high interest savings account. This will be your emergency fund should you need it. Its main purpose is to make sure you can keep a roof over your head, food on the table, and have transportation to get to work. So how large should your emergency fund be? I typically recommend 3 to 6 months of basic living expenses. In tough economic times, you'll want to save closer to the 6-month mark if you have no access to capital. If you, like most Americans, have trouble saving money, you'll want to make and keep a monthly budget. A budget is simply spending plan for your money. If you need help creating your budget, there are many free and inexpensive apps and services that you can use to help guide you. Try to save at least 15% of your after tax paid home take home pay. 15%. Investing before you expect the market to drop may not seem like sound advice at first glance, but experts agree that consistently investing small sums is a better strategy than investing lump sums at once. This is because effectively timing the market based on expected market performance is nearly impossible to do consistently. In essence, you want to spread your investment out over time to decrease the effect of timing. Speaking of other investments, I recommend opening a Roth IRA if you don't have one and qualify to make contributions. The reason that I love the Roth IRA compared to other types of IRAs is that you can withdraw your contributions, not the gains, penalty free. Due to the tax advantages of an IRA, you would only withdraw from your Roth IRA in a worst case scenario, but it's comforting to know if it's an option. So I'm not going to read all of this, but this is sort of advice that a CFP, a certified financial planner, would actually give you. So if you want to see more of this article, that will be in the docket in the description beneath the video at the end of the live stream. So,
Hello?
yeah,
Hello, did you go off?
no, I'm here.
Oh, sorry about that. You went silent for a little while.
Yeah, I had to. I'm still trying to get used to this new laptop. It has a touch screen, and I use a mouse when I'm at home. So sometimes I'm touching the screen, but I also have a mouse too, so it's jumping all over the place. But what's going on, brother? Shalom.
All right, how you doing, Mike?
Good.
That's good advice. Sounds like it's written by somebody who was trying to get you invested in the market, but
Hmm.
it's good advice. It's a little bit late to start right now, but um, I wouldn't waste time. You know, you got to have some cash, and you should have cash at all time.
Hmm.
No matter if things are going good for you, you
Hmm.
should still have cash. I'm
Hmm.
serious. Something that you can turn into cash like within a day or so if something goes wrong, you need money quickly. That's beside your investment. A 401k is a good investment. Um, if you can put like 10% of your income in it, every paycheck would be great. I mean, that would be fantastic. If you got to take it out, you can take out what you put in, but you can't take out like the interest or
Hmm.
say you put 500 in a stock and the stock
Hmm.
doubles and you now have 1,000. If you need $500, you can take out that $500 that you put in. But
Hmm.
if you take out the other $500, the taxes are enormous. So don't touch it.
All
But
right.
whatever you do, get that cash on hand that you
Hmm.
can, and don't spend it because some people tend to want to spend money when they got a lot of money in their pocket. Well, I can put it back next week. Don't do that
Hmm.
because when things get really rough, you'll be saying, "Man, if I didn't buy that TV, I didn't really need it. I could have had the cash to use now."
Hmm.
The other thing is, like people like to in situations like what's coming up, people like to try to pay their mortgage or pay off the car loan or whatever the case might be. But don't double up on your car loan. Put that money into something that you can invest in, that you can turn into cash if you lose your job. Because when the economy get into a situation like that, it might continue going for another year, but unless you own the corporation, your job is not safe.
Right.
Respect, Super Trits. Good evening, sir.
All right, let me get to this next one. This one is from Bloomberg.com. High yield savings accounts feel this Fed squeeze. Before the financial crisis, the term high yield savings account would have been considered an oxymoron. Today, such products are thriving. After the Federal Reserve dropped its benchmark leading rate to near zero in late 2008, big US banks paid virtually nothing to anyone who parked money with them. That presented an opportunity for new, mostly online errands to swoop in and offer much more. After years of getting zero, customers viewed a 2% interest rate with backing from Federal Deposit Insurance Corp as a bona fide steal. I have a savings account and I don't get anywhere near 2%. I get 2%, 2.5% on my credit cards though. And I've let me see. This year alone, I think I've accrued probably close to $250. And it's not, the year's not even over yet with my credit cards, but my savings account, I probably accrued maybe what, $3, $4. I don't know, man. Savings accounts seem to be very very iffy and not really a high return on investment. Maybe DE Raptor can't hear us, but
Yeah, I can hear you, but I thought you were saying something else.
mhm,
Yeah, these I don't know. People should look around to see what they can get for the best value.
mhm,
You know, um, if you are an elderly person and you, you really
mhm,
you can't invest in something that like a stock that gonna today it's going to be $150 and tomorrow it could be $100. So you got to invest in something that's going to give you 2%, 3%, you know, 4 or 5% maybe. But if you're a younger person, you shouldn't be investing in a 2% thing. I mean, I can't give you advice as far as finances go, but when you start investigating how the economy works, how the banking system works, how cash actually works, and if you're going to invest in a market, you should take the time to look at the stocks that you're going to buy. You got to look at one short term, medium term, and long term stock. You got
mhm,
to look at the up and coming companies that you think is going to be a Microsoft later. You're going to look at the old companies
mhm,
that you think is going to be a GE later. And you got to look at the old companies that's going to go like, say, Boeing or Walmart. They
mhm,
don't go up really fast, but they keep on going up.
mhm.
You know, so if you're a young person, that's where you should be putting your money in. You look at this thing, you actually go in the market, you watch the market, you will see that certain, like healthcare, it will be up today. The whole healthcare market will be rising today. It'll be doing that for 2 or 3 months.
Mhm,
And then you'll have the energy market, electrical companies, energy companies, Exxon and all of those, they be rising, healthcare be falling.
mhm,
And you see this cycle in the market. And you got to watch that cycle. You got to know when to move your money around. You should do all of the research. Do as much research as you can. You have the time. If you're a young person, you have the time. I am not kidding you. You have the time. Don't say I don't have the time to do it. I can hand the money over to somebody and let them do
All right, let me get to this next article from Slate.com. What's going
Hey,
on,
Mike.
Ty City?
Hey, Mike. Real quick, two
Yes, sir.
points.
Yes, sir.
on that 401k,
Hmm.
um, you absolutely want to get the 401k, and you absolutely want to utilize it when you can. It's no well for most 401ks, no penalizing for first time home ownership loans. Also, if you get in a pinch,
Hmm.
you can borrow money from yourself, and it's paid back with interest. So when you pay it off, you have more money in your 401k.
Yeah, we want to keep in mind that we do not give out financial advice here. If you want a certified financial planner, go to cfp.net, look up one in your area.
Oh yeah, and the second point on the savings account, um, that 2 to 3% interest is actually not even really there when you add in inflation on a yearly basis.
Hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Next item is from slate.com. Removing racial bias from credit scores isn't possible. As long as our economy is racially biased, our credit scores will be too. In September, the Bernie Sanders campaign rolled out a plan that would revamp how credit scores, credit bureaus, and in turn, lending would work in America. This plan would establish a secure public credit registry within the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that would eventually replace the existing system. Currently, the three major credit bureaus and many smaller agencies collected data on Americans with or without their permission. When people apply for loans, apartments, and jobs, the bureaus turn that data and scores computed from it over to banks, landlords, and employers. Unlike the current opaque system, Sanders' Public Credit Registry would use a public, transparent algorithm to determine the credit worthiness that eliminates racial bias in credit scores. Sanders' proposal would also remove medical debt from consumers' credit reports and would end the use of credit report checks for housing and job applications. Each of those suggestions, if implemented, would probably result in a fairer, better lending system. But the plan offers a false promise that we can eliminate racial bias in credit scores. It's a worthy goal given that across the 60 biggest cities in the US, predominantly non white neighborhoods have credit scores that are, on average, 76% or 76 points lower than those cities' predominantly white neighborhoods. But just changing the formulas used to calculate credit scores will not close those gaps much, if at all. As long as our economy is racially biased, our credit scores will be too. To see why that's true, we have to understand the many ways credit scores operate. As Josh Laurer, author of Credit Worthy: A History of Consumer Surveillance and Financial Identity in America, said when I spoke to him by phone. We have this idea that credit scores are one single number. But Laura said there are hundreds of scores. Some are specialized scores built by credit bureaus for specific tasks, like predicting whether you default on a particular type of loan. Others are built by the banks themselves using a mixture of data from credit bureaus and the bank's own data collection efforts to predict not just whether you'll default on a loan, but whether you're the type of customer who will frequently use their products, keep your current open, keep your account open for many years, or carry a high balance on a credit card. Some credit scores are relatively well understood by the public, FICO, the familiar credit score that lenders can purchase from Equifax, TransUnion, or Experian is calculated from a generally known list of variables by way of confidential formula. By contrast, the credit scores built by the banks themselves for proprietary use are black boxes. These specialized scores are entirely mysterious to the public and may often be unfair. It's not completely clear whether Sanders' plan would prohibit banks from building their own credit scores. As Kathy O'Neill reported in Weapons of Mass Destruction, American Express has created internal risk scores based on where customers shop, and it was up to the unhappy Amex customers to guess which establishment had poisoned their credit. There's every reason to believe that what Amex is doing is typical of the industry, and it is certainly emblematic of dangers of this system. While these internal credit scores are monitored for racial bias by Office of the Comptroller of the Currency and the CFP, CFBP, PB, an OCC spokesperson told me by mail that the office takes a risk-based approach to fair lending supervision. Regula- regulators are forced to Regulators are forced to prioritize their attention even with more staff. It'd be impossible to deeply scrutinize every credit score made by every bank for racial bias. And an infinite amount of bank supervision still wouldn't be enough to close the gap in credit scores between Black and white Americans because frequently bias isn't created by the credit score calculation, it's described there. Imagine for a second the simplest, most transparent, arguably fairest credit score possible. It might be statistical, it might be a statistical model that predicts your likelihood of defaulting on a loan based only on accurate information about whether you've paid your past bills on time. That simple, fair approach would still produce scores that were systematically better for white people. Even if the credit score is fair, the life experiences it crunches into a number are not. People of color in the US face rampant employment discrimination and widely disparate treatment by the criminal justice system, which at times results in unfair prison time or worse. It's hard to pay your bills on time if you're fired because your boss doesn't like your natural hair, or if you're thrown in jail for a crime you didn't commit. And of course, these obstacles to timely bill payment are compounded by the massive wealth gap between Black and white Americans. If you haven't accumulated assets you can fall back on during hard times, Laura pointed out, a job loss or an episode of bad health is more likely to cause a drop in your credit score. And a low credit score can cost more than your ability to borrow money. The idea the idea that credit scores are enumerations of our moral worth or level of responsibility is embedded in our cultural fabric. This is why employers see fit to use credit scores in hiring decisions, a practice that I, like Sanders, believe is unfair and should be outlawed. Even in the narrowest use, forecasting the likelihood someone will default on a loan, credit scores are still a reflection of some things that an individual can control and many other things that they can't. I challenge you to name a single attribute that would influence or predict whether someone can repay a loan that is not in some way related to the circumstances of that person's birth. Put simply, if we don't change the underlying discriminatory forces that make Americans differentially able to weather financial stocks, Black Americans will continue to have lower scores than white Americans. It's not even clear what it would mean to have credit scores free of racial bias. Would it mean historically advantaged and disadvantaged groups have the same average credit scores? Would it mean the models themselves just don't contain any information related to a consumer's race? Something already prohibited by the 1974 Equal Credit Opportunity Act, or something else altogether. For that matter, should we have credit scores at all? Or should every consumer be treated identically by identically by banks? I would only recommend the final option if affordable rates if we wanted to freeze consumer lending entirely, since it would be hard to offer anyone credit at affordable rates if people could repeatedly default on loans without consequence. While some might advocate for such a freeze, it's considerably more radical than anything Sanders has proposed. The Sanders team points to research by the Urban Institute that offers suggestions for policies that would help reduce the racial gap in credit scores. For example, changing how local governments levy fines and fees. But that report stops short of implying that the credit scoring algorithms themselves are structurally flawed. Sanders recognizes that getting rid of a private credit reporting agency isn't a panacea. In a speech in March, he said, "Do we still have a long way to go to end the institutional racism which permeates almost every aspect of our society?" Absolutely. A member of Sanders' policy team told me by phone that Sanders' credit reporting proposal is intended to work in concert with other policies to promote racial equity, like his suggested jobs guarantee and his criminal justice reform plan. I'm not going to read the rest of this, but this is actually a very strong point. The problem is that white people collectively have an incentive to maintain racial inequality in this country. And so they come up with as many algorithms as possible to enforce their social constructs onto everyone else, just like a credit score is a social construct. It's not really rooted in anything that's guaranteed. Well, not so much as guaranteed, but it's not rooted in anything that's factual, right? You can't tell me that I can't see what's in the black box to determine how this person's credit score is 76 to 100%, 100 points lower than that of a white person. So in order for you to get a proper mortgage, you have to have a credit score of at least 680. If a black person's credit score is 76%, 76 points lower, that means they don't even qualify for that low interest mortgage loan. So therefore, they're already disqualified just by default by the algorithm, because the algorithm always has a average of 76 to 100 points below the average white person's when it comes to black people. So I think what happens here, and we've talked about this before, is that the best way to go about something like this is to create a public banking system so that they don't have these sort of discriminatory practices, and that the power is not so much in the private institution in the algorithm, but in the power of the people itself. You put your money into a bank, you get to vote on what gets done with that money by that bank. Whereas in private institutions, you don't really have that flexibility. You have zero flexibility in these institutions, and those private institutions benefit from the tax incentives that they get when they build their buildings and their brick and mortar facilities in your neighborhood. Bank of America, Chase Bank, all these other banks build in close to predominantly black areas, and then they get to do whatever they want, and they take your money, and basically you're at the mercy of that bank's algorithm, because you don't know what's going on in there, and you have no say. So the way to fix that, my opinion, and I think Nagon would probably agree with me, is that we need a public banking system. That's the only way to fix that.
Yeah, well, uh, you already said it. America is built on a system of racial
Equality.
everything. I'm serious. Everything in America is built on race. It started out that way and probably will end that way.
Mhm.
There's every time that you try to change a system like this,
Mhm.
there are always loopholes left open
Mhm.
so that commercial banks or whoever is in control of the system can manipulate it to the detriment of black people. That's the way it is. Public banking would be better because you have more control over your money. The
Mhm.
commercial banks don't have to care about your neighborhood, even though you put your money in their bank because it's their bank, not yours. But public banking now is your bank and the community that you're in. Say you in New York City, it would behoove New York City to make sure that the whole New York community is doing well, because if everybody is, or as many people in the community is doing well, they get good taxes.
Mhm.
They be able to collect money that keep the street clean. keep the neighborhood, well policed, lighted, and all that kind of stuff. So your neighborhood is going to be kept up, because the
There'll
bank
be
itself is invested in your neighborhood.
right. There'll be an incentive to do so. Tie
Right.
City. I think Tie City's gone. Let me
No, I agree, bro.
Oh,
I
okay.
agree.
Okay.
We we should get more into, you know what I'm saying, not only putting a structure together, but making it a cultural thing to have financial advisors and financial planners and things of that nature, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But I agree.
Yeah, my position has always been that no black person should in these predominantly black neighborhoods should receive any sort of government assistance until they go through a financial literacy program. Mandatory. That should be a part of the public library initiative to make sure that there's formal um, institutional literacy on finance. The most disenfranchised group financially doesn't have access to basic knowledge on the financial endeavors of this country, including that of a credit score. So, how do you leverage um, your institutions, your public institutions, so that they can actually aid? Right? You have a public library, and there's so much money pumped into it. But when you start talking about a public bank, the private banks don't want to talk about that because that means all those poor black people are going to pull their money out of those banks, and the ones who can't afford to put their money in there are not going to put their money into. They're not going to go to Western Union and checks cash anymore. It's going to put them right out of business, and they know it. So there's a lot of pressure on the government to not see a public banking infrastructure put in place. All right, let me get to this next article. This one is from entrepreneur.com. The great debate: can you teach entrepreneurship? As a society, we hold ardent and conflicting opinions on entrepreneurship. One, it can't be taught. Two, it can be taught, but only in advanced education. Or three, it can only be learned in the school of experience and hard knocks. A notion often accompanied by the opinion that earning an MBA is a waste. Think for a moment about the way you view MBAs. Confident, maybe even cocky. They are probably well dressed and poised for a career in management, finance, or equipped to climb the slippery slope of a Fortune 500 success. Now, think about your opinion of entrepreneurs. Many will envision college dropouts, perhaps in hoodies, who are invariably opportunistic, confident, charismatic, and unafraid to take risks. Who could ever teach these abilities? And does anybody really need an MBA? Shoshana Stewart, the story chief executive of Turquoise Mountain, a craft business that started in Afghanistan, earned her own MBA at the London Business School (LBS). She said in an interview with The Economist that an MBA gives you three things: a network of people, confidence, and exposure, and an array of skills. Good points. In contrast, entrepreneurial wunderkind Rob Ryan grew his startup ascend to $2 billion in revenue and sold it to Lucent Technologies for approximately $20 billion in 1999. He's invested in and mentored multiple companies, including Right Now Technologies and Silicon Spice, to $1 billion valuations in the years since. Ryan doesn't have an MBA. He obtained a Bachelor's of Arts degree from Cornell University on a scholarship in 1969. Later, he earned a master's degree in mathematics from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He worked from Burroughs and the Lawrence Livermore Lab and Digital Equipment Corp. He founded his first company, Softcom Incorporated, in early 1985 and sold it to Hayes Microcomputer Products after 2 years. But he will eventually, he will probably maintain to anyone that entrepreneurship can be taught and successfully learned by people of all ages, beginning with elementary school. According to Ryan, whom I had a chance to speak with recently, the secret to entrepreneurial education can be found in his sunflower model for innovation, which he created during a pivotal investment meeting for Ascend and later refined for use in education worldwide and to advise the thousands of companies he's been mentoring since. We could summarize the concept as follows. If you imagine the shape of a sunflower, think of a large center and the seeds of the core competencies of your company. The petals are the revenue channels that span out from the center. The stem represents the driving forces upon the business, such as the influences you feel from the market. Here's a distillation of Ryan's roadmap for how to achieve success in 6 steps. Find your core competencies. 2, build your revenue petals. 3, do a revenue petal walkabout. 4, redefine your decision matrix. 5, build a suffocation strategy. And 6, design goals and steps for a successful transformational company. So I would agree with this that you can teach entrepreneurship. I think the problem is if we're talking about this in the context of Black people just don't have access to capital. Black people have a lot of great ideas, but they don't have access to capital. So therefore their ideas never get off the ground. So I think you can teach entrepreneurship to a certain extent. You just can't stop at teaching. You also have to allow the ability to have the ability for it to get off the ground. And that getting off the ground means that they have to have access to capital.
But Mike, having access to capital is not always necessary. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're going to be building, simple, if you building equipment, for instance, then yes, you know, if you're going to go into if you're going to open your own auto mechanic shop, you know, you want to go into it full force, yes. But if you want to say start in your garage, and then you work on cars, and then you connect with a person that sell tools, you know, and then you gradually build up. Then you don't need the access to capital, like the guy who was going to say build a bottling company. If he said, well, the Black neighborhood needs a Coke bottling company, you know, a Pepsi bottling company, then you need that. You need building supplies and all that kind of stuff. If you want to be a cake baker, you can start this from your house. I'm saying this because there are lots of small businesses that didn't require. There are a lot of small businesses that Black people can start up that don't require the what we look at as startup capital.
Ty City.
Yeah, man, a good friend of mine, he shoot wedding pictures with his cell phone.
No way.
No bullshit.
And it comes out. What did you have? An iPhone?
Yeah, he said that the Google Pixel,
Mhm.
the Pixel 3 is what he likes. But he take pictures with his cell phone. Then he goes and even his website is sick. And like he when he just tell me that, you know, when he show up to these weddings with his cell phone, people can't believe it.
I don't know, man. That must take a lot of Photoshop to to get something like that done, because I can't imagine. I mean, I know the Google Pixel is a really, really good phone, camera wise, but the iPhone is pretty good too. But you have to really, really have like a gimbal or something to take
No,
pictures and stuff like that.
yeah, he nice with it.
That's crazy. I know
Yeah,
some
but
guys have been shooting rap videos with with like the iPad and stuff like that. So I don't know, man. It's be interesting to see how that works out.
you
It's
can
working
actually
for him.
do that,
Trust me.
Mike, because look at
He
it. Taking photograph is an act of taking it on the right lighting, the right if you in the right light setting, your
Hmm.
phone will take a fantastic photo. If you're got the right backdrop, like if you're taking a photo against the ocean or against the setting that look if the setting is good, then the phone would have to be really really bad to take a bad photo.
Right.
Yeah, he does products. He takes pictures of products too for like people's catalogs and
Hmm.
online web stores and stuff like that.
Hmm.
He do that too.
Hmm.
Yep. If you got a good lighting, man. If you got a good lighting, and if you're outdoors, say you are by in the park beside the lake or something like that, if you can get the camera in the right position for the sunlight and everything,
Hmm.
your photo is gonna come out almost as good as if you got a T7.
Canon.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's the first
Oh
time I ever
yeah.
heard of that. First
Oh
time.
yeah.
I know you can record good video, but taking pictures, I've never had. Most of my phones are fairly good, but I've never had real success with taking photos on a phone like that. Most of my photos have come out washed out or something like that. My
If you
selfies, my selfies are never good.
Oh, selfies is one of the worst things you can take for the phone camera, but there's a reason for that. There's
Yeah,
a reason for that because
Wait. You don't got a selfie stick?
a selfie stick. I don't walk around with no selfie stick, man.
Let me see you have a selfie stick. You out of here, bro.
All right, man. Let me get let me get to this next one, man. All right, this one's from entrepreneur.com. Best businesses you can start for under $1,000. All right, according to Gallup, more than half of US workers are actively disengaged in their roles. And Nielsen reports that the average household watches almost 8 hours of television per day, maybe 8 hours of live streams in the manosphere per day. That's a lot of time and focus that could be invested in building a successful, rewarding new career instead. Anyone with ambition and an idea can grow a business at home. A small investment can cover essential tools required to get started, laying the foundation for what many develop into a successful enterprise. Each of the businesses listed below can be launched around your day job with an initial outlay of $1,000 or less. So this is what DE was referring to earlier. Tech support. The proliferation of cloud computing means more businesses require technical support than ever before. Small enterprises on tight budgets often struggle to afford in-house specialists and outsource their support instead. This represents an opportunity, especially in a tech role. Knowledge of cutting-edge systems and fast problem-solving skills are crucial for starting a technical support business. Assistance may be delivered virtually by phone, Skype, etc., or in person. Tech support specialists earn $18.54 per hour on average, according to PayScale. Software development, business planning, freelance writing, app development. There's an app for almost everything. The total app revenue was more than $71 billion across both Google Play and iOS stores in 2018. And all of these apps were developed by someone. Obviously, this is a competitive market and landing clients is a formidable challenge. But starting small and working with local businesses will help growing app developers build a portfolio. Experienced prolific businesses may command far higher rates. App developers earn between $17 and $59 per hour on average. Graphics design, accounting. Certified accountants may find regular work with businesses, organizations, and sole traders, managing finances, improving efficiency, and ensuring taxes are paid in full allows companies to avoid costly mistakes or oversights. Holding a certified public accountant license is a huge advantage and is provable experience. Launching an accounting business requires little investment, but lots of time, especially when working with clients whose financial records are in sorry shape. Good project management software, Trello, Asana, and organizational skills are crucial. Accountants earn $20 an hour on average. Event planning. So these are actually some good ideas. I don't see anything wrong with them. If you had the skill set, I guess that works.
Yep. You know, some of the things that I don't see on there, there's this thing called there's a company that supply people who go grocery shopping for other people. We talked about that
Mhm,
a little while back.
mhm,
You need an automobile, and most people got an automobile already, or even a motorcycle. You get a motorcycle and you put a carrier on the back,
mhm.
you can go shopping for people. You know, um, there are lots of little things that you can do that don't require this big investment. You know, and that you can do with the equipment or the time that you have available to you.
Mhm. Yeah, I think when I talk about access to capital, I'm talking about like micro lending, right? So micro lending would mean something like $1,000 to $5,000.
Oh, okay,
So
yeah,
that's what I mean by access to capital. And
right.
micro
Oh,
lending
okay,
is something that Black people really need um, because they don't have the access to, right? You may, let's say you wanted to do an errand run business for scooter with a scooter, right? But you don't have access to a scooter. Well, how are you going to get it? So you got to go out and actually get a micro loan that's going to allow you to have access to a used scooter or a shop from a shop or something like that for $1,000, and that's going to cover your upfront costs, right? And then you'll accrue money throughout the year, right? Most businesses don't turn capital until a year or two. So if you can get your business up and going quicker through micro lending, then that would be beneficial. But micro lending is really hard for a lot of Black people to get access to because not enough institutions available where they are. But that's where a public banking institution would actually come in and help. Tyson, do you have anything you want to add to
Yeah. I, I mean, how would you structure that?
that? Micro lending?
I mean, because I think I the, I don't know, man. Because I look at some of that stuff as being kind of kind of predatory. You know what I'm saying?
Not necessarily. So micro lending is necessary, and it's been proven to work. That's why the whole thing even works in the first place. I think they started in the Middle East, like in Afghanistan or something like that, and then it grew out of that in the 80s.
Oh, okay.
Micro lending doesn't mean that it's predatory. It just means that you need access to quick capital, right? So most banks are not going to loan you anything unless you have an account with them for one, which is hard for most Black people to do because they can't balance a checking or savings account because they can't maintain the $100 or $200 or whatever it is they need to keep in there. So without going through all the litigation of that, you you uh
Mm,
you may find yourself needing it like by the next business morning. And that's where micro lending comes in. So that small access to capital. Hey, what's going on, Super Triz?
Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Respect to the panel in the chat.
Yes, sir.
Micro be something that I would be interested in doing. I actually looked at hard money lending as well. You know, with the real estate market, sometimes investors, you know, or speculators need like hard money, so they need cash, like maybe like, you know, $25,000 loan, $50,000 loan, and you know, and a lot of times they can't get financing for that at the bank because of the condition of the property they're trying to renovate. And so that's where a hard money lender will come into play. And sometimes the return on investment is like 12%, sometimes 18%, depending on, you know, the market and the terms of the agreement. So that's something that's not really, I don't know if that'd be considered a micro loan, but yeah, lending money. You know, one thing to consider is that, you know, once you start making, I want to say I think you have to make over 200, or maybe it's $250,000 a year, or you have you have $1 million in assets. You're considered an accredited investor. And so once you're an accredited investor, you have a whole slew of other opportunities that are available to you, as far as investment and things like that. So that's something to consider as well. The only caveat about some of those businesses for under $1,000, like I was hearing some of those wages, like $20 an hour. I think that only makes sense if you're able to conduct your business, like say for instance, you're able to live like in an area that has a very low cost of living. Like say for instance, you live in Arkansas or something like that. You know, $20 an hour, that would be good. But like if you're living in a big city, $20 an hour, that really doesn't seem like a lot of money. I just assume CPAs make more money than that.
Well, these are side businesses. These are not main businesses, right? These are things these are businesses that you can run while you still maintain a full-time day job, right? So these are supplemental to your already steady income.
Hey, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Another job that a little side hustle that make good money is pinstriping parking lots.
Yep.
And like you said, they prefer you to do it at night so it don't interfere with the business. So you can maintain a day job. And most people own multiple companies and they refer different people, and it make a big difference to the business front.
Yeah, that's actually a very good idea too, guys. I've seen that done, but I also have seen janitorial services for parking lots, right? So at nighttime, after like a Burger King or McDonald's closes, there's people that come out there and actually clean all that stuff up, man, and dump all the trash that's littered around there, man.
Oh, another one too. To think about, because you know, a lot of people in the manosphere, you know, they don't even work; they just sitting at home. So, like another possibility that requires very little startup is a dog walking services.
Yep.
You know, you put like a little, you know, Facebook post, Instagram. Really don't require any money. They basically just walk the dog and you you know, get a little baggie to get the little poop up while they're walking the dogs and stuff like that. You know, people pay money for that.
Yeah, there's vacant lots too, like little small vacant lots that people pay to you know, let their dogs go in there and poop, and then somebody else comes by and cleans it up for a fee. It's crazy, man. So much money to get out there. Hey, DE, you're gonna have to mute yourself, please.
Yeah, remember during the housing crisis, all those foreclosed homes, they had people contracted with banks.
All right, let me get to this next article from Reuters.com. Rising old used car prices help push poor Americans over the edge. For America's working poor, An often essential ingredient for getting and keeping a job, having a car has really been more costly. And millions of people are finding it impossible to keep up with the payments despite prolonged economic growth and low unemployment. I think Super Trips drove one of these before. I might be wrong though. or it might have been in Aurora or something like that. More than 7 million Americans are already 90 or more days behind on their car loans, according to the New York Federal Reserve. And serious delinquency rates among borrowers with the lowest credit scores have by far seen the fastest acceleration. The seeds of the problem are buried deep in the financial crisis, when in the midst of the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression, automakers slashed production. A decade later, that has made a relative rarity of used 10-year-old vehicles that are typically more affordable for low-wage earners. According to data provided to, it should have been provided by, according to data provided by or provided to Reuters by industry consultant and car shopping website Edmunds, the average price of that vintage of vehicle is $8,657, still nearly 75% higher than in 2010, despite some softening in prices over the last year. The average new car, in contrast, has seen a price rise of 25% in the same time period. This is pinching people at the worst point possible, said Ivan Dury, Edmunds senior manager of industry analysis. If you need basic A to B transportation, you have to get an older car that needs more repairs and has more wear and tear issues. Monthly auto payments for Americans making under $40,000 have remained flat since 2017, while those in higher wage brackets have seen their payments rise, according to a Cox Automotive Incorporated analysis for Reuters. On the face of it, this might seem like good news, but to Cox chief economist Jonathan Smoke, it indicates poor Americans are stretched so thin they cannot afford to pay more. They just don't have any flexibility to increase their payments, Smoke said. Weak lending standards in recent years are partly to blame for the rise in delinquency rates, which Warren Cornfield, a senior vice president on Moody's Financial Institutions team, said are approaching record highs despite a solid economy. Auto lenders are belatedly tightening lending standards, but it may already be too late, he said. The economy is masking the true performance of auto loans, Cornfield said. If we hit a downturn today, the performance of auto loans would not look very good. Research from the New York Fed earlier this year showed that while delinquency rates among borrowers with high credit scores have remained steady and low, for subprime borrowers, they have been rising, pushing up the overall delinquency rate. Around 8% of loans originated by lower score buyers with a credit score below 620 were characterized as seriously late, a development that is surprising during a strong economy and labor market, Fed researchers wrote. I don't know, Ty City, man. Cats out here, buying these used cars, man, and then falling delinquent on them. What's going on?
I'm cool on that. I'm down for buying used cars with cash only.
A lot of Americans don't have cash though.
Hey,
You know what,
man,
though?
we gotta embrace the we gotta embrace the hoopty again, man.
A hoopty ain't a hoopty like it was before, bro. I mean, they stopped making cars in 2008. Remember, there was a downturn for a couple years. So, whatever you see out there, man, that's it.
Yeah, I was running a little used car lot for a little bit, and I never got to the financing aspect of it though.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I ran a straight cash car setup. I allow people to make payments, but they they put down what I got it from out the auction. What I got out the auction was the down payment, and then I doubled it from there on the payments. But I never got to the legitimate like lending with banks and stuff like that. I didn't make it that far.
You know, it's funny that you bring this up. Well, for one, another thing that's not mentioned in the article is people that are getting title loans. I knew a girl when I was in Houston who was underwater in title loans, and she would get another title loan to pay off a previous title loan. Just crazy, just cyclic, you know. But
can you explain to some people in the chat what a title loan is, because they don't know?
So essentially, you have secured loans and unsecured loans. So unsecured loans, you generally need high credit scores to get an unsecured loans because there's no collateral.
Right.
So if you default on the loan, the actual lending entity can't recoup their losses. So with the actual title loan, your collateral is your vehicle. So basically, if you have a vehicle that's paid off, you take that title to the title loan place, and they hold your title until you actually repay the loan. If you don't repay the loan, then they can actually possess your vehicle. You know, because you know you actually transferred title, title to that lending entity. So the title loans, again, it's some people consider it predatory lending because of the high rate of default and the exorbitantly high rates on the actual interest rates. So that's title loan in a nutshell. So the reason why this is so interesting is because there's a older cat that I work out with, actually rather frequently, at least maybe 3 times a week. He's from Bosnia, and he's an immigrant, and but he's been here for quite a while. So anyways, Bosnians, from that particular country, they have a whole different mindset as far as money and stuff like that. So at any rate, he works in IT. He works at Virginia Mason, one of our competing hospitals. And he makes very good money there. I mean, he makes well over 6 figures doing IT. But he's constantly trying to hustle. So what he does is he buys cars from like Craigslist. Every once in a while he'll go to like one of those auctions. But he generally buys cars from Craigslist. And what he does is he'll buy a car and he'll go look at it, but see, he knows cars very well. So he'll look at the car and he'll determine like, oh, okay, this is an easy fix, something simple. And he does a lot of the work himself. And so he'll buy a car like today, he just bought a Volkswagen Passat, 1.8 liter. He bought it for $500 a couple days ago. Only thing that was wrong was like somehow the one of the ECMs got saturated. So he had to replace the ECM and the alternator. So all in, it was $500 for the car, $200 in parts approximately, and then he did the labor himself. He's going to sell this car for $2,500. Now, he likes to flip the cars quickly. He said that he can hold on to it and probably get $3,000 for it, but because he likes to turn around quickly, he prices it $2,500, and so that in itself is an enormous profit margin on that vehicle.
If he gets it.
No, he gets it every time. I've been working out with him for like 2 years. He has different cars every freaking day. And he has them for like a couple of days and he sells them because he gets specific type of cars because he knows what sells in his particular market. And so I was like, well, because he normally gets German cars. He gets like Volkswagens and stuff like that, Porsches and whatever. And so I'm like, man, why don't you ever get like a Toyota and blah, 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 ship it back to Bosnia? And he was like, what he said, because the Toyotas appeal to a different type of customer, and this may sound a little racist, but he said, every time I get a Toyota, it's either an Asian, an East Indian, or African that wants to buy it. And he says, when they come to buy it, all they want to do is haggle the price down. They never want to buy at the price that he wants to sell it for. He said, but when he gets the German cars, the Volkswagens, the Porsches, Mercedes, and stuff like that, BMWs, he says whatever he asks for, they pay it, and they don't try to bargain with him at all. They just pay the money, and that's it. So that's something to think about too.
Yeah, I got a friend of mine. He only buy little red Hondas, and he park them by high schools, and he flip them like hotcakes. That's his strategy, and they be going too.
I
That's a
bet.
good
Buy red cars and he park them by high school.
All right, next one is from businessinsider.com. Millennials and Gen X are both stressed, broke, and in debt, but Gen X is more worried about it. Insider recently teamed up with Morning Consult to survey 2,996 people, 96 Americans about their financial health, debt, and earnings for its new series, The State of Our Money. Findings largely didn't paint a pretty picture, particularly for millennials and Gen X, 672 and 566 respondents, respectively. The margin of error overall is about 2%. For the purpose of this article, we largely focus on these two generations because they are in their prime working years, while Gen Z and baby boomers were both surveyed. We refrain from analyzing both generations as many aren't in the workforce, either not yet working or retired. The majority of indebted millennials and Gen X are feeling the burden of their debt loads. Gen X is more downtrodden when it comes to their finances, while millennials think they are doing okay, at least compared to their peers, and both aren't adequately preparing for retirement. Here are some of the key themes that repeatedly popped up in the survey results. Millennials are known for being financially behind thanks to the fallout of the Great Recession, high cost of living, and staggering student loan debt. But Gen X is just as nearly as stressed about money, especially when it comes to debt. Of the respondents who answered, more than half of all millennials and Gen X respondents said that they were stressed some or a lot of their credit card, personal loan, and or student loan debts. Of the 51.5% millennials who have credit card debt, 67.4% are stressed. Of the 54.5% of Gen X who have credit card debt, 64.3% are stressed. Of the 24.3% of millennials who have personal loans, 62% are stressed. Of the 24.6 of Gen X who have personal loans, 62.5% are stressed. Of the 28.4% of millennials who have undergraduate student loan debt, 72.2% are stressed. Of the 15.5% of Gen X who have undergraduate student loan debt, 62.5% are stressed. Gen X is the most stressed out credit card debt, while millennials are more stressed about student loan debt. The latter is a particular problem. It's so stressful that nearly half of indebted respondents in both generations say taking out loans for college wasn't worth it. But it's not just debt that's stressful. Money is also a huge source of stress in a marriage. Of married millennials, nearly 64% say money causes some or a lot of stress with their partner. Nearly half of Gen X respondents say the same. For baby boomers, that percentage drops down to roughly 36%, highlighting a big generation gap. Even single people who date said money is a source of stress for them. I guess they're non-select. If Gen X's levels of money stress indicates anything, it's that they are financially worse for the where at least they think they are. I think this is poorly worded or spelled. When asked how they would rate their financial health, slightly more than 41% of Gen X said it's not very good or not good at all. That's worse than millennials, 37% of whom said the same. More of Gen X than the millennial generation also think their finances are much worse off, somewhat worse off than their peers, about 43% compared to 36%. Gen X is also less likely than millennials to think they earn more than their peers and more likely to think they earn less. Of Gen X respondents, half think they earn less than their peers. 29% think they earn less and have less debt, while around 21% think they earn less and have more debt. So I think this is very interesting that people who are dating and married as millennials, which is something that's rare, money is about breaking, is almost certainly to break their relationship. Both groups seem to be really stressed out, but they all seem to be pointing the finger at the baby boomers. I would say.
I'm reserving my comments.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm reserving my comments on that. That's a whole nother show for me.
Oh yeah. All right.
Yeah, you know that the whole student loan thing is crazy. Again, you know, I was just talking to somebody that I work with. This person is a technologist that for imaging. So she does X-rays and she does CT scans. She probably makes about maybe about 75,000 a year. And you know, there's still room for growth as far as her years in service. So, you know, she's been doing it for a little while, but I mean, she still has more room on that pay scale. But at any rate, she's making about 75,000 a year. Base rate. She puts in overtime and stuff like that. So obviously her wages are significantly higher, but base rate is about 75,000. But she has like $75,000 in student loans. And I was like, Jesus Christ, you know, chiropractor, I know, 150,000 in student loans, you know, so a lot of people are not really considering what their options are as far as education is concerned. A lot of these social workers, you know, some of them have $100,000 in student loan. The social workers don't make that much money, and social workers, you really don't make money until you're at the master's level anyway. So if you're a bachelor's level social worker, you're really gonna have a hard time because you're gonna be limited. Probably have to get a job. But most hospitals want an actual they want an actual master's prepared social worker, and which is going to require even more schooling. A lot of people are taking these student loan debts because they're going to out-of-state colleges or they're going to expensive colleges, and it just doesn't make any sense. Like, you know, your education is an investment, right? So depending on what field you're going into, further study, you know, some like you said, like a lot of people don't even consider certificate programs because some things may only require a certificate. But if you're going to get requires an
I think we lost Super Triz.
Hey, but you know what, Triz? That's for the people who actually graduated and got a job.
Mm-hmm.
I
All right. Well,
think the shop I work at, I'm the youngest person in there, and they've been working for like 2 years.
yeah.
You say what now? What'd you say?
Now, what I'm saying is, I'm the youngest person. I'm the youngest person, and hello.
Yeah. I see you getting cussed out by your son.
Yeah, he going
Yeah.
off.
Let me.
Now, what I'm saying was, I'm the youngest person in the shop. Like, the young guys not even walking through the doors to get some of these jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
Kai City has a point. Kai City has a point.
Yeah. It's all like, you know. I mean, obviously, you know, if you want to do something that you have a passion for, but you got to think logically, like, right? So if what you have a passion for is not going to pay a lot of money, well, you have to accept what comes with that, right? And if you go to a school that's expensive, and you don't got, and your job doesn't pay a lot of money, you're going to be saddled with student loan debts. Quit looking for people to sympathize with you for a decision that you made, right? You know, so like there's things that I would rather be doing than what I'm doing now, but I understand that, you know, this has an enormous yield. Like number one, like my base rate
is extremely high. Just my base rate alone, if I didn't work any overtime, it already puts me in the top 10%, probably 5%, of earnings in the U.S. But because that's not the kicker. The kicker is that I can get as much overtime as I want. I'm working 60 hours every single week. That's 20 hours of overtime every single week. And so that's something that you got to think about. If you got a job where you're not going to get any overtime, well, you're going to be stuck. And then what's going to happen is you're going to try to get a secondary job with secondary hustle, but that has diminishing returns because, you're going to a different occupation. You're not in overtime. See, I work at the same job all my hours. So once I'm over 40 hours, I'm already in overtime. So I got the greatest return on my investment as far as time is concerned because after 20 hours, I'm in overtime. And then now, not only I'm in overtime, I get callback pay. So that's why I'm saying, like, you got to have some forethought and start thinking about, okay, what's the greatest return on the investment? Like right now, this year, like half of the year I was in school. Half the year I was in school, right? But even with half the year being in school, this is going to be the most money I've ever made in my life in 1 year. Like, I'm talking about this, like the amount of money I'm making this year is going to be insane. And then next year, right? Next year, I'm going to have to go through this training program. So I'm going to be in program for 3 months. But next year, I'm going to make even more money because I'm going to be able to put even more hours in at the same location, overtime status. That's something that people got to start thinking about.
Mhm.
Okay, you three guys are younger than me, so I'm gonna ask you a question. You're working. I don't know if you guys got student loans, but suppose now, for instance, you guys got a $100,000 student loan. What is your priority when it comes to your life at the time when you start your job? You got the student loan. What do? You buy a new car?
No,
You go live in an expensive apartment,
no.
or you buy a house. You go get married. What do you do? And a lot of people are
You
not
put your
making the right
student.
choices when it comes to that decision. You got the student loan. If
You
you
put
like, Super Six just said that he knew somebody who makes 75,000 a year.
you
If
put
you're
your
making
student loans.
$75,000 a year, you should pay off your student loan in about 3 to 4 years.
No, because you put your student loans into deferment. They advise you to do that. Every school will tell you to do that, to put your student loans into deferment, because there's no guarantee that your money is going to be around. It makes more sense to pay your rent than it does to pay your student loans. If you don't pay your student loans, it's not like they're going to throw you out your house. But if you don't pay your rent, you will get evicted, right? So it makes more sense to put your money behind your most pressing needs first, which is student loans, your insurance, your car note, and then put your student loans last. Student loans are never a priority, and which is all the more reason why they need to just cancel student loans altogether, because it doesn't have a return on investment for those who are paying it. It's not like, oh, you if you pay it, it's going to balance out the economy on a national scale. It's not going to do anything.
And that's
Hey,
why
Mike.
so many go. Mike's right. That's how so many go into default.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah, but if you got a student loan, why would you need an apartment, you need food and all that. But if you got a student loan and you're making 75,000 a year, why wouldn't you after, say, you pay off your immediate living expenses, you
Mhm,
put in 5 to 7% in your 401k savings.
mhm.
Why wouldn't you try to pay off your student loan as fast as possible after that?
Because
Because you're
she's
paying it
busy
just
living her.
interest.
Hey,
You're just paying the interest, and that's it.
She's
hey,
busy.
Mike.
She's busy. She's busy living her best life. Trust me. Not okay. You're talking about $75,000. This lady, she's not that old, but she works a lot of hours like I do. She's
Hmm.
making a lot of money. She's probably making every year. She's probably making about 175,000 a year because she works overtime. So she could have been paid off her student loan, but because she's going on trips, she's going to freaking, like, I'm talking about out of the country trips, like, you know what I mean, like, and so that type of stuff is the reason why, because she's not prioritizing her debt, which a lot of people with student loans don't prioritize their student loans because they're like, oh, well, it's not a secured loan. It's not like there's any collateral. They can't take your degree
if you don't pay your student loan. So it's like, well, if I don't pay it, you know, well, who cares? I'll just pay the bare minimum, you know,
Nah.
and that's that.
Hey, Triz, I defaulted on my student loan, and because what happened after that was they took my whole
They took your hoe?
Whoa,
they,
whoa.
they took my
No.
they took my whole income tax.
Oh,
Don't take my hoe. Shit, don't take my hoe.
No. I wish.
well, I thought you was a select guy there, Ty City.
Nah, what you got against us select guys, man? Hey, I defaulted on my student loans, and they took 10% of my check for 3 years.
Oh, well, you're not selected.
Yeah, you're not select, man.
Yo, what's going on, Nicole? I didn't know you was back
you
there.
know what though? all the select people still paying for theirs.
No, you know what they're doing now? To DE's point, they're putting people in debtor's prison now. The first person to get locked up for student loans was a black man a couple years ago.
What?
Yeah, they put him in jail.
What kind of degree was that?
Oh man, he forgot to pay his student loans, man. I think he was like $1,000 behind or something like that, or like $1,500 behind, man. They put him in jail for it.
Yo, and you know what? My job wouldn't stop taking that money out of my check until they wrote a letter to them requesting that they stop taking it. I had like $7,000 that was stacked up because they just kept taking it. I had to go through a lot for them to stop taking it out of my check.
You should have ran to Mexico.
There are a lot of people. There are a lot of people moving to Europe to get rid of to get out of paying student loan.
Oh, you know that the European Union actually established new policies last year to prevent that from happening, man. You need a visa. You have to go through and get a visa now. You can't stay there permanently.
Wow.
What's going on, Nagon? You have anything you want to add to this?
Nah, man. I was just laughing about the little Mexico government. Oh man.
So
I mean,
he lost his mean of support, bro.
Yeah,
he
man.
can't pay the student loan anymore.
let me get to this next article. All right, this one from CNBC.com. Nearly 1 in 5 Americans are stashing cash at home in fear of a recession. The ongoing conversation around if and when the U.S. will enter a recession is prompting many Americans to make some potentially costly mistakes when it comes to their money. Based on their fears of a potential recession, 17% of Americans have started hiding cash in their home, according to a new poll from MetLife of over 8,000 U.S. adults over the age of 18, and 21% of respondents report they have become more conservative with their money. Making these kind of moves can prove costly. If you're hiding cash in your home, you're not able to take advantage of compound interest, which helps your money grow exponentially the longer you have it invested. Plus, inflation actually eats away at the value of your money. So leaving large amounts of cash lying around can make it harder to achieve your long-term financial goals. Hiding cash in your home is one of the worst things you can do. Aaron Lowry, author of Broke Millennials Takes on Investing, tells CNBC Make It. Beyond the financial implications, there's also the possibility that the money could get forgotten or destroyed. Meanwhile, if you move your money into your investments that are too conservative while you're young, you may lose out on opportunity to grow your money at higher rates between 1926 and 2015. An aggressive portfolio actually netted higher average returns than a conservative portfolio. Even people who are not going to extremes are being influenced by all the talk of a recession. About 41% of Americans say they check their investments more frequently because of talk about a potential for a market downturn, according to MetLife survey. That's 100% the wrong move because it's going to freak you out, Lowry says. If your investments are properly designed to withstand the ups and downs of the market, checking on them is just going to make you anxious and provoke an emotional reaction. What you need to be controlling is for is you, Lowry says. One of the biggest mistakes you can make, especially if you have a well-built portfolio, is panicking and selling off your investments. If you get out of the market and then wait too long to jump back in, you may miss the upswing, which could prove a costly error in the long run. Building a balanced portfolio means spreading out your money by investing in different types of assets, such as stocks and bonds, in a variety of different sectors. This lowers the risk that your entire investment will be wiped out if something happens to one particular company or industry. You can put this type of portfolio together yourself, or you could opt to work with a professional or invest through a so-called robo-advisors, which typically manage your money for you. Beyond having a well-balanced portfolio, here are 3 simple positive steps you can take to help mitigate any impact of a potential recession might have on your finances. Build up a savings cushion. Cut back your spending. Keep investing. So, this doesn't really articulate, these little pie charts don't really articulate anything much because they don't really define anything. Oh, here it is. So between ages 18 to 24, you should be living paycheck to paycheck at 47%. Have 3 months of saving, 27% of your income. Have 6 months of savings, 15% of your income. And having 1 year of savings, 11%. So between 25 to 34, that's 44%, as opposed to 18 to 24, which is 47. So the net difference is 3%. 25% having 3% of having 3 months of savings. Having 6 months of savings, 16%, and having a year of savings is 15%. Interesting. So 35 to 49, which is Gen X. Living paycheck to paycheck is 43%. Having 3 months of savings is 24%. Having 6 months of savings is 17%. And having 1 year of savings is 16%. So it's all within the margin. I guess if you're 50 to 64, 42% live paycheck to paycheck. There's a lot of people on in the manosphere who live in super chat to super chat. Oh man. Somebody's gonna have to time me out, man. Time me out.
Hey, you know what though? You know, it's funny that you mentioned. It's funny that you mentioned people stashing money in their home, because you know I have somebody I work with. Just this week, they had money stashed in their basement. You know, a substantial amount of money stashed in the basement.
Really?
Her son also had some money stashed in the basement as well, because the son is like over the road, does some not trucking, but he does some type of business where he has to be on the road all the time. So he had cash money stashed in the basement. The basement flooded this week.
Wow.
They had to run home. Listen, the son drove across country, like literally, like I'm talking about from like New York. Like he made it here like in 2 days. Like
Wow.
That's how motivated he was to see about his money.
Yeah,
They had
he put the money in the dryer.
Work.
Put that money in the dryer.
Yeah. Yep. They had to take the money out. They had to get industrial dryers, dry out the money. It was a whole fiasco. Never mind the actual damage that was done, to the actual property itself because of the flooding. But it was a frantic ordeal, because you never know when something like that's going to happen when you have money at home You know, a fire could happen. All kind of stuff could happen.
Mhm.
You know, luckily it was just a flood. They can dry the money off. But I mean, had it been a fire, that's it. You lost all that money.
Yeah. I say it's generally not safe to keep. I mean, I know a lot of us who keep cash. I keep cash at the house, but I don't keep no large amounts of cash. Maybe $1,500 or so. That's about it. You don't leave a lot of cash in your house. Like I said, I think if you want to talk about a cash, you should leave your money in, some of the oldest caches that we know of, either gold and silver. You keep your money in that, and I wouldn't certainly keep that money just laying around in your home. I certainly wouldn't do that. I don't think that's safe because somebody can come in and rob you as well. So I do think it's shaky business, but people are, scared of the market. There's a lot of terror talk out there, and people are going back to where they were doing in the 20s, man, in the 30s, keeping their money under the mattress. And that's what a lot of people are going back to that. I mean, having cash on hand is good in one respect, but it is risky in another. So, and I definitely know the banks and everything else like that don't want you to have your money there because, they can do more with your money in their bank where they can lend it and make more money on it and do that and get more fees on it and that kind of thing. So it keeps them going. So, taking your money out and not putting it into the banking system or the investment banking system, they make less money. They make less money on that. So they certainly want you to have that money in there. And you're, large, your money's insured as well and everything else like that. Well, up to a certain amount. But most people, don't have over 250,000 in cash in a bank. Most people do not have that, but a lot do, but most don't. But anyway.
But I guess the dope boys had the right idea to keep their money stashed in the house, man.
Well, they did. But what the dope boys don't want to tell you now is that the banks as the banks got cash poor, the money laundering game went on crazy, and what do you think kept the market up during the crash? Whose money do you think was in the bank?
Hey, Nagoon, that's not doom and gloom enough. Can you explain to the people what a bank run is?
A bank run is when there's panic setting in for whatever given the given financial situation might happen. But what happens is everybody comes into that bank to get their money out, and the banks only carry basically about a net cap of about 10% of what all deposits supposed to be in that bank. So there's not a lot of money in there, and what they will do is they will come in there, and every client, every account holder will come in there and try to withdraw all their money before they see any kind of crash. And what the banks will do is they'll try to slow people down from doing that, because that will make the bank basically insolvent, and it will cause a real problem. But a run on the bank is when everybody runs to that bank to get all their money out, and the bank will do certain kinds of things to slow that down if they can. The bank runs have happened. We haven't had a lot here in this country, but there have been a few bank runs, and banks. That's the last thing a bank wants to see is a bank run on their bank. It's the last thing they want to see. Very, very terrifying for a bank, and it could finish them off. So they don't want to do that. They don't want to see a bank run. That's the last thing a bank wants to do is have a bank run. So they try to keep panic out of people's minds, because first thing somebody feels is if shit gets thick, they'll come running down to the bank and withdraw all their money.
This happened about a year or so ago in Cyprus, where they tried to pull their money out the bank and out the ATMs, and those ATMs were shut down.
Yeah, they'll shut down, or they'll slow up and say we'll delivering money over, and they'll slow for the day, and they'll do all kind of things to try to slow people from getting their money. They'll come up with all kind of creative ways of keeping you from getting your money for that, out that day. But they have techniques for just to stop that. But bank runs have happened. I think there was one in Asia. An Asian bank had a run on it a couple of years
Singapore.
ago. So they've been a few bank runs, not many, but there have been a few, very few in this country, but they've been one or two recently. They are bank runs.
There was one in Greece, I think maybe earlier this year, maybe last year. They couldn't get their money out.
Yeah, and you know, banks are terrified of that because, you know, they will get all that capital taken out, and then they'll come to the government to try to restock, and it's a lot of issues with that, and you can basically go out of business. You can literally knock a bank out the box by having a bank run, and that's a real problem because clients can demand to have their money, and if you don't pay them their money, and you know, then you're looking at other kind of huge political problems for that bank, and it's terrible. It's terrible to have that kind of situation happen. So banks are horrified at that kind of situation. And they'll do all they can to stop from that. All they can to stop that from happening. As we
Yeah,
saw bank runs that happened at, you know, certainly in the crash of '29 and so forth, in the crash of 2000, excuse me, of 1907. We saw that happen across the country, and a lot of banks are out of business. So they
but
want us
see,
to stop that.
but
Go
see,
ahead.
but see, Nago, if you tell some of these Negroes that the Fed is doing everything they can to prevent it,
Yeah.
then that's doom and gloom. It's scary. You're scaring people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, you know, a lot of people don't, you know, I know what you're getting at, but I know where you're going on, but
They
like I
they
say,
they, they just extended quantitative easing all the
yeah,
way until January.
yeah. I mean,
They were supposed to be done already.
they'll do that. They'll also do more open market operations as well to kind of keep things kind of flowing and smooth, and keep money flowing into the and into the markets to kind of keep things up. So they will do certain things to keep that from happening. But bank runs are something that countries, regardless, even though they're small hearted banks, they don't want to see that happen in their country. They don't want bank runs. Bank runs are extraordinarily destructive because then it doesn't come down now to the actual financial wherewithal of the bank. All of a sudden, people start panicking, and then when panic sets in, which is an emotional thing, then people will start running on banks that may not have that many problems. And people will just come in there and start running, taking all their money out, and you can actually cause a collapse. You could cause a collapse in the system if that happens.
It's like
So
playing Jenga.
yeah, absolutely correct. So it becomes an emotional response, and it becomes contagious, and it can be terrifying.
Because they
You know,
don't have a
people
lot. They don't have a lot of that money on hand, anyways, right? So you go in there, you got 80,000,
10%.
100,000 in there, and you try to pull that sucker out. They're gonna tell you to hold on there, hold your horses there, buddy.
They're going to tell you. You have some people in there who have 2-3 million.
Mhm.
You know, you have big players in there. You'll have and they start pulling their money out. You finish. So so that's the last thing. Little small accounts are one thing. People have 1,000, 2,000 or something else like that. When people start pulling out 50, 60, 100, 200,000, 300,000, a million, all that kind of stuff. Oh man, banks are that's a huge problem. Huge problem. And then of course, if you have hundreds, well, let's say you have a line of 1,000 people down the whole block, and they're down the block, and they have small accounts, or whatever. That adds up as well. Don't want to see that, and that causes panic. They start seeing huge lines at a bank. People panic. Panic sets in. There's no longer rational thinking. It's panic, and that's a problem.
Hey, let me get to this next article. This one is from CNBC.com. GE to freeze pension plans for about 20,000 U.S. employees in a bid to cut debt. I think DE Raptor sent this in. General Electric said on Monday it was freezing pension plans for about 20,000 U.S. employees with salary benefits as the industrial conglomerate makes another drastic move to cut debt and reduce its pension deficit by up to $8 billion. Since taking over a year ago, Chief Executive Officer Larry Culp has carved out a number of measures to streamline the company and raise cash to pay debt. He has chopped the company's dividend to a penny. What a fucking dividend. GE and its finance arm had total borrowings of about $105.8 billion as of June 30th, with industrial net debt at $54.4 billion. The The company said it will also freeze supplementary pension benefits for about 700 U.S. employees who became executives before 2011. GE's pension plan has been closed to new entrants since 2012. GE said the freeze is effective January 1st, 2021, and both moves are expected to help lower net debt between $4 billion and $6 billion. Boston-based GE said there would be no change for retirees already collecting pension benefits. Returning GE to a position of strength has required us to make several difficult decisions. And today's decision to freeze the pension is no exception. Chief Human Resource Officer Kevin Cox said. Shares rose 2.6% to $8.79 in pre-market trading. The company said it will offer a limited time lump sum payment option to about 100,000 former employees who have not yet started their monthly pension plan payments. GE expects to record a non-cash pension settlement charge in the fourth quarter, but did not specify the amount. The company also said it would pre-fund about $4 billion to $5 billion of its requirements for 2021 and 2022 under the Employee Retirement Income Security Act by using a portion of the $38 billion in cash it is collecting from sales of various businesses. The company also said it was on track to achieve its leverage goal of a less than 2.5 times net debt to EBITDA, earnings before interest, tax depreciation, and amortization by end of 2020. Just as a heads up, GE is right down the street from me now, so the headquarters is right down the street from me. Yeah, people getting torn out the frame come 2021.
So you about to have a whole lot of Walmart greeters, a whole lot of new Walmart greeters.
Well, we don't have Walmarts in Boston, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, this is pretty serious. They're holding back pensions and stuff. What they're saying is a lot of pension plans are going to go belly up as well, which is pretty terrifying.
If you're a millennial, you're not getting a pension.
Let's not say that. Let's not say that yet. But boy, it does look bleak.
Yeah, so, but most millennials would not be old enough to qualify for it because according to GE.
No, certainly not. Certainly not. You got to wait to get a pension. You got to wait till retirement age. Some are can retire.
They don't even. They stop offering pensions for a lot of jobs around here.
That's what the article says. GE stopped offering in 2012, so they wouldn't even be qualified for that.
Yeah. So not good, man. And so you have to set up your own pension plan at the end of the day of what you can, and that's going to have to be a part of your savings plan, and you have to really stick to. And you got to be, people have to be fiscally responsible. The level of being more fiscally responsible now today is more on people's backside than it was. For my generation and before. People are going to have to be much more fiscally responsible, and that's a tough one. That's a tough one, especially if you don't have huge incomes or large incomes. Save a lot of money, so it's a tough game.
You're gonna be shopping at Save a Lot.
The dollar store, a lot of dollar stores going up. Anyway, go ahead.
Hey, but Nagoon, we talk about a pension though.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Not people just being irresponsible. We talking about. You feel me?
Well, now if you're talking about there's going to be no pensions for a lot of people, what's going to hold you over during your retirement? Now you're talking about people not retiring.
Walmart greeter.
Or if you go, a Walmart, or if you're going to retire, you better have your money in IRAs and different kind of separate accounts where you're getting some kind of return on your money that can actually help you along. And it's a different game. Just a different game. So the government's going to have to come in and back a lot of stuff up, even though they're not going to want it. You can have a lot of people that are going to fall out of the game, and it's going to be highly destructive. Medical care costs, all these kind of things are going to rise unbelievably. You're looking at a total collapse of the system. You know, we
But
are
I thought
looking at a
that's what Social
collapse.
Security was for. I thought that's what Social Security was for.
Well, you know, Social Security, they're talking about you know, the money that's in Social Security is going to be out the next about 30 years. So your Social Security is going to dry up. We're talking about, you know, by 2032, healthcare costs outstripping GDP. So, I mean, you're looking, you know, we're looking at numbers. That's why some people get upset. Oh, don't talk doom and gloom. But when you start looking at the numbers, at what you're looking at and the unsustainability of what's happening, there's a lot of shit to be nervous about. And where, you know, and the government's going to have to play a step in game on this. They're going to have to step in. And, you know, I think what's going to really happen is there's going to be some revolutionary movements going on here in the country.
That's what I'm talking about. Nicole. Let's get it.
And it looks like that the super rich that are glomming everything, they're going to have to put a lot more back into the system to shore it up. They're going to, all they're taking, they're going to have to give back. And I think that's what some of these people are looking at and are
Nicole,
trying to
here,
put a lot of their money outside of the country.
They out of
Say
here.
it again. Say it
They
again.
out of here.
Yeah. Well, a lot of guys are taking their money out, but it's coming to a point now where there's not a whole lot of other places to run.
I mean, they were somebody was trying to buy,
unless Asia or Africa, you know.
Somebody was trying to buy Iceland or Greenland, one of them, right?
Yeah, that's been happening multiple times before, though.
Yeah, I mean, Iceland, you know, they went belly up in the last draft.
It's Greenland that has all the resources. I don't think it's Iceland.
Yeah, but Iceland went belly up. Iceland got about 300,000 people there.
Yeah.
So you know, it's a relatively small country. But
they have to import their women.
Oh, no, they got a couple of little Iceland chicks running around there. But I'm saying is they got to import a lot of other things, and they're a small country, man. They're a very small nation. So you have states that have here in the United States have a lot more people than Iceland.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
You know.
Well,
with this,
go ahead, DE.
With this pension thing, there's a lot that people are not looking at it. That a lot of people are missing, and that yes, G can freeze the pension, and in certain cases they can give over the pension to the PBGC, which is what a lot of companies are doing now.
G had to get a bailout. Remember, G had to get a bailout during
But the other problem that nobody's looking at is this pension money. All of the pension money goes into some bank or investment company in the US or the London stock market, whatever stock market that Fidelity or TD Waterhouse or whatever invested in. What's happening is the investments that the companies that you're investing in are no longer, you can only inflate that company's stock so much. You always gonna need more fresh money coming in to shore up the money that you got in there. Because if I own a stock and it's at 1,000 and there's nobody who's going to buy my stock because there's no money in the market to buy it, no fresh money coming in, with people who is putting money inside this 401k or Roth IRA or whatever the case might be, or because you know your company takes your money that you give to them, hand it to a broker, and that broker buys a stock. When he buys a stock, somebody's making a profit on that stock.
So in a nutshell,
go and take it easy. Take it easy.
Well, I'm gonna ask you, what are you saying?
Go and take it easy, man. I'm not finished yet.
I'm gonna ask you, what are you saying here?
Thank you. All right, go ahead with the next one.
No, I was saying this. What are you saying here? Are you saying that the pensions are done? This is it?
No.
I think he dropped off.
Okay.
I was just trying to say.
Look, you're asking, what are you saying? What are you saying? What are you saying?
No, I'm saying.
You're not listening to what I'm saying.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
You're talking and you're not listening to what I'm saying.
Go ahead. Good.
Anyway, what's happening in the market is that without this, with all these companies losing their or getting rid of their pension plan, what you have is this market with people who are in there. Like if I'm working for some bank or some company in the US and I've got my 300, $500,000 or $1 million in the stock market. Now, no new money is coming in because all these companies are getting rid of their um, um, plans. What's going to happen is after a while, you're going to get a stock market that is like going into a recession.
Restriction.
And it's not starting to go into depression yet, where the stock price is going to start falling.
Mhm.
But the prices are almost like going sideways. And that's what's happening in the market. The amount of money coming from people like GE, American Airlines, for instance, they got 100,000 workers. And they've got a pension plan that their workers put into, and the company might add 5% to. If they get rid of that pension plan and give it to the PBGC, America is no longer putting 20 billion into the market every year. And that stock market now that used to depend on that 20 billion plus the other 20 billion from GE and all the other companies, you're not getting it.
Mhm.
What
That's why
runs
they were trying to
stocks?
go after Social Security. And when they didn't get Social Security, they start looking for every way to make money, to get money. You see the market is being inflated with by people pushing the price of stock up. But the
D,
number of
what runs stocks? What makes stocks? What's running the market? What
look,
runs stocks? Why are stocks running so hard? What are companies doing to make the stocks run hard?
look,
What are they doing?
the price of stock can only go up if somebody has the faith to buy that stock, thinking that the price of the stock is going to continue to go up. But if I got $1 million and I already invested 99 million in the stock, 999,000 in the stock market, and it doesn't matter if I think the stock is going to go, the stocks that somebody's got out there to buy is going to go up or not. I don't have the money to go buy that stock anymore.
Mhm.
If I'm a broker, if say I'm Fidelity, and I'm collecting money from GE every month, when that money goes away, I can no longer the broker that was collecting that money to invest in the market cannot invest it in another stock.
What really runs the stocks? What's really running stocks? Are companies are reinvesting their stock. They're doing stock buybacks. They're hoarding a lot of it. They're reinvesting it. They're reinvesting stocks. They're running it. They're reinvesting it. They're reinvesting it, hoarding it, reinvesting it, hoarding it, doing 2-for-1 splits, all that kind of thing. That's what's running the market. That's what these guys are going to continue to do. And then what they're going to do is after this market runs as high as they can, and if they decided that this is a good investment to stay in this country or not, they'll either leave their money here or they'll move it outside of the country. That's what these guys are doing, man.
But the other thing is they can't. Well, how are they gonna move it outside the country?
That's how they run in the game right now. Now, will there be
So
will there be places to run it later on down the line? Will they be able to run? Who knows? We'll have to see. But there are other emerging markets that these guys are looking at and putting their money in and taking their money out of here. So, I mean, that's something that we talk about here a lot. But I'm just because I'm listening to what you're saying. I'm trying to get some sense out of what you're saying, and I'm just saying, hey, what's running these stocks and what's running these things? Why these companies are doing so well with them? They're hoarding their stock and reinvesting it, consistently reinvesting it and doubling down on. That's all. That's what I'm trying to say. And
I need to get to the next article.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. This one's from Car and Driver. Americans are taking out ridiculously long auto loans, with the average loan term exceeding 60 months and $30,000. Can people still afford new cars, and how do you avoiding falling into the trap of long-term debt. No one needs to be the first butt in the seat of the 17 million new vehicles purchased each year in the United States, but we want to. There's a problem with that. New car loans are the longest and most expensive they've ever been, and too many people are rolling over their existing loans into new loans when they trade. Unchecked, it could be another economic disaster waiting to explode. According to Experian, the average loan for a new car was $32,119 during the second quarter of this year, which at 16% more than during the third quarter in 2014 is normal at standard 3% annual inflation rates. For a used car, it was $20,156 or only 9% more, while delinquencies remain stable even as some 7 million people are 90 days or more behind on payments. The brewing problem relates to loans that the last 6 years or more. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau estimated that 42% of all car loans made in 2017 were 72 months or longer. Now, the average loan length for new cars is 69 months, and loans of 85 months or more represented 1.5% of all new car loans, according to the Wall Street Journal, with average interest rates at 6% for new cars and 10% for used cars. A big uptick in the years after the 2009 recession, when credit began flowing following billions in government bailouts to automakers and banks. There's a high likelihood that car owners, like students, won't pay off their loans. A third of car owners roll over their debt into new loans, compared to about a quarter before the recession, according to the Wall Street Journal. Extremely long loan terms surfaced in 2014 when new car loans between 73 and 84 months surged by 24% over the previous year. Before that, no one ever thought car loans would stretch that far, but dealers, automakers, and banks have made a brisk business with this country's $1.2 billion in outstanding auto debt, and more are likely to lock you into a long-term loan, and that could ensure in perpetuity of debt. The solution for the consumer is simple. Don't look at monthly payments. Look at the total payment, including interest, for the entirety of the loan, with all applicable taxes and fees, and ask yourself whether you'd be better off spending less on a car and saving or investing the difference. Shop around for your loan and know that dealers can legally tack on a couple of percentage points to inflate the quote without telling you what they'll pocket. That's crazy. And if you think you need a brand new car but can't afford one, you probably don't. The glut of late model used vehicles on the market means that good deals are prevalent in nearly every vehicle segment. Most vehicles in the 6 to 12-year-old range, what Experience calls the sweet spot, are reliable enough without a warranty and significantly cheaper to own than a new car. No matter how great new cars are, they are never worth losing your sleep or your financial security. So what it sounds like to me is that Ty City had the right idea, open up a used car lot.
People are holding their cars a lot longer as well. Most people are who have cars, they're holding them longer. So that's why I say automotive is a great business to go into, because a lot of people are holding their cars longer. They're keeping them around. The services them, they could be serviced better, and people are keeping their cars around and not paying a lot of loans and all kind of stuff for these cars. They don't think it's worth it. So it's better to keep these cars on the road. So used cars are definitely or late model used car, which is a decent vehicle, it's probably a decent investment, especially if the car doesn't have anything major like a transmission problem, something else like that, or a major engine problem. Probably good investment. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well,
Whoa.
Go ahead.
You saying buying a new car is a good investment?
No. The used cars. The used cars.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Just checking, Because
Yeah.
if you buy anything in this market brand new, you are absolutely out of your mind.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of
Explain to
loans.
us why, Ty. Explain to us why.
Okay, so the depreciation value and over the terms, like it's I don't recommend it. I think it's a lot of good lease programs and things of that nature, but like buying a car, brand new one right now, everything's inflated. Like it's not a pickup truck under 40 grand. That's decent.
Mhm.
Well, you know, in my case, I was looking for a used vehicle like a couple years ago, and I was looking particularly at a Toyota 4Runner, and the Toyota 4Runner at the time that I was looking, um, a 3-year-old Toyota 4Runner, with like, you know, between 40 and 60,000 miles was $37,000. You know, and so
Wow,
in the new one, yeah, in the new one was $45,000. So we're looking at a 3-year-old vehicle, still $37,000, and a new vehicle, $45,000, brand new. It's for a Toyota 4Runner Limited, right? And so I was like, it just makes more sense to buy a new one, you know?
yeah, if the prices like that, yeah.
Well, so it's very iffy because certain vehicles don't depreciate very fast. So like say for instance, like a Toyota 4Runner and the Toyota Tacoma. For some reason, Tacomas actually have a higher resale value than even a 4Runner. Like if you buy a Toyota Tacoma used, yet you better off buying a new one because the used car values on Toyota Tacomas are so doggone high depending on the trim level. Certain trim levels is super expensive to buy a used model. So I think like just applicable, you got to kind of look at what the new versus used values are. And then a Toyota 4Runner, you know, I can keep this car for like 20 years, you know, so.
And the thing is, Forerunners are so unique in their production that that's what keeps the value really high on them. There's nothing like a Forerunner on the market at all. I don't know any car that's comparable to a Forerunner outside of.
Well, the problem is that all the vehicles have gone to crossover format, where Toyota 4Runner is one of the last
4x4s.
body on frame true SUVs that you can buy. So for people that want something that's actually rugged, that can tow and that can go off road, you don't really have a whole lot of options left in here.
Mhm. Yeah, most Americans don't go off road. I mean, unless you count the speed bumps inside of a Plaza Mall as a off road.
Actually, the limited Toyota 4Runner is not necessarily an off-road variant. You know, it has a 20-inch wheels and all that stuff from the factory. But I actually went off-road with it. Like we went up into the mountains to go shooting, and so it does everything it says it'll do.
Ty City, any input here? 96-month car loans.
96-month car loans. Holy shit!
But why would you invest in a car in the first place? Why would you consider a car an investment unless it is for your business?
Nah, I can tell you why, because
Mhm.
there are cars that are excellent investments
Mhm.
that are going up like rocket in value. My thing is, if you do fall and bump your head, buy a new car, make sure you get it fully loaded. So when it's time to trade it in or whatever, you got some value in it.
Yeah, you're right about that. Because if you're gonna pay for something, at least pay for the best, right?
Well, here's the thing, though. A car can be an investment if you're in the business of being selected. You know, for select men out there. No, really. No. Think about it.
Here he goes.
No. Mike. I'm being so 100 right now. Think about
Let's
it.
go, Trent.
Right?
Let's go.
No, really. Okay, I'm breaking it down real quick because we've already seen videos, you know, of guys who pull up in certain vehicles. What the reaction of women are like. Say for instance, a guy would try to initiate
initiate contact with a woman, you know, like a cold, what they call a cold call, but like it's like a random, like you walk up to somebody out the blue. And
like LL Cool J in the Hey Lover video.
Well, I don't know about. I haven't seen that video, but like when you talk to somebody, like the guys talk to a woman, and the woman will like kind of blow him off, but then he'll walk back purposely, like make sure she sees him in the line of sight. He'll walk back to a car like a Lamborghini or Ferrari or something like that, just a nice car. Then all of a sudden, the woman's disposition will change. Like she'll be running up to him, hey, so where'd you say you was going again? That type of stuff. So yeah,
Triz. You know we can rent cars and do that. We don't have to buy it.
Yeah, didn't some dude create a Bugatti out of a Cougar?
Yeah, you can rent a car.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. That's pretty funny. Did a damn good job on it too.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not in the business of being selected. My dad told me. I talked to him 2 days ago. He told me that I'm basically a monk because I'm working so damn much. But
is that a MGTOW monk?
I mean, my dad doesn't know what MGTOW is, but he called me a monk. I started laughing because my dad is older. He doesn't know anything about MGTOW and that stuff, but he called me a monk.
Does your dad know the red pill?
No, he doesn't know any of that stuff.
Does he know black pill? Does he know any of the pills?
My dad is like 70-some years old. He don't know nothing about that.
Well, let me get to this next article because I don't want to give my input too much, but
go ahead, Mike. You know what's coming. Go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
Let's go, Mike. Let's go.
Let it rip.
NPR.com, man. Renters only. The new homes aren't for sale. A different sort of American dream is under construction outside Denver. More than 130 homes are being framed and nailed gun together, but there won't be any real estate agents staging open houses. Instead of home ownership, this development is all about home rentership. We got started in around 2010 after the housing crash and people were losing their homes, says Josh Hartman, the CEO of Next Metro Communities, the company building these homes. He says the business idea was that all those families losing homes to foreclosure wouldn't want to go back to renting apartments. They'd want to rent single family houses until they got back on their feet financially. But that's not who kept walking into the sales office to rent the houses. What we were shocked to find out was people that had great credit. They had money down for down payments. They had great incomes, but they just didn't want to own a home. Hartman says they were a lifestyle renter by choice. And there were a lot of them. So Next Metro kept building homes. It's built 2,800 so far in Colorado, Arizona, Texas, and they fill up quickly. Other builders are doing this around the country too. So why are so many people who could buy a house renting one instead? This is perfect for me, says Luann Irwin, who lives in a finished Next Metro development in Commerce City, Colorado, a Denver suburb. I wanted the house feel, but not the house payment and not the commitment of a 30-year mortgage. Interesting. Irwin just got divorced. She's not sure where she's going to want to live longer term. Her cottage style house here isn't big, but but it has 10-foot ceilings and spacious feeling kitchen and living area. The yard is tiny and the homes are packed tightly together, but that doesn't bother Irwin. I've got a gas grill out there. I got a fire pit, and we sit out there at night. She says, my neighbor next door came over the other night, and we just sat around, drank wine, and just talked. It felt like home to me. There's also a pool of residents to share with a big hot tub. Yeah, this is a spot where our residents love to hang out in the evenings or on the weekends with their friends, Hartman says. He says there are basically three types of renters of these houses: recent divorcees like Irwin, aging baby boomers who don't want the headaches of owning a house anymore, and millennials Most millennials say they want to own a home someday, but they are not buying as young as prior generations. For some, student loan debt is a factor, and the high cost of rent in many areas can make it difficult to save up for a down payment. It's so Alarcon, 25, moved in recently shortly after getting married. She says she saw her relatives hurt by the housing crash and home prices have doubled in the area since then. And so she's nervous they might fall again. Alarcon says home prices seem ridiculously high, so we'll stay here for at least a year or two for sure. At least $1,500 a month. At at $1,500 a month, she says the couple's one-bedroom cottage is cheaper than buying a house in the neighborhood she finds appealing. So for many residents, renting seems to make perfect sense. But if they stay here too long, would they be violating one of the fundamentals of good personal finance? After all, owning a home and building equity in it is still the most powerful way for most Americans to accumulate wealth. Owning still makes much more sense, says William Wheaton, a housing economist at MIT. He says these rental homes are fine short term, but he hopes young people don't wait too long to buy into the housing market. If prices continue to rise like they have in Denver, buying in Denver will be a money tree, Wheaton says. But even if you're very cautious and say no, 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 they are not going to continue to rise a lot. They'll inch up a few percentage points each year over 5 or 10 years. That adds up to a sizable nest egg, and that's what you're trying to buy. That's what you're giving up by renting. So this is interesting.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, lifestyle renters though.
I think and I'm just going to say, I think from the last crash we saw, I think it was so devastating. And many millennials and all who saw that, they're not fucking with it. The American dream, they can turn very quickly into the American nightmare. And that was, there's a lot of, post-traumatic stress from that last one. So I think what a lot of people are looking at is saying, I'll save money. I'll invest in other types of situations, and I'm not going to put all my money into this housing market because this housing market could go belly up at any point in time, of which it can, for homeowners. And if your property now all of a sudden, there's a big crash in the market, your property all of a sudden drops in value. You put a lot of money in there. There's a lot of issues. So there are those who are saying, I don't know. I don't think they have I think there's a lack of trust in the overall market, of which I can understand. I can certainly understand. I think people are looking at this as being somewhat risky, and for the long term. And even though there's a lot of money to be made, certainly, and you can definitely get a lot of wealth from owning homes. We saw what happened in the last crash. That wasn't that long ago. And looks like we may be looking at that potentially again. And there are folks who were thinking the market right now was looking a little bubblicious. And, folks are getting nervous about that. So I think the faith in this game is just not there. And people are saying, we'll rent. That will make a lot more sense and save some more money that way, and put our investments elsewhere, and not worry about this house. And if something happens, and even people who get married, and if they get divorced, it's not like they got a big house thing they got to lose or whatever else, and use these massive assets that way. Folks are, I think folks are hedging a little bit. I think what we're actually seeing is people being a lot more cautious and showing a little bit of lack of faith in the system. I think that's generally what I think we're seeing.
Well, I'm not a financial planner. I don't offer financial advice. These hypothetical scenarios that I speak of are whimsical confabulations for entertainment purposes only. Let me just say that right now. But my opinion is that when we look at like the housing market, especially from the 2008 crash, economic calamity, if I may, up until now, and you look at the actual values of homes now, they are significantly higher than they were pre-2008. So there was a net gain. Now there is a deviation. They're not as high as they would have been if the economy had stayed on track in the way it was before 2007. But everybody who held onto their home that they had before 2007 now has a home that is more valuable than it was when they bought it, period. So, the whole fear, what the problem is that because they feel like it's at the top of the market, like now is maybe not the right time to buy a single family home because, 10 years from now, the value that you have in your home will probably be the same or maybe just incrementally more. But here's the thing. What makes when you look at the actual housing market, there's different aspects of the housing market as opposed to a single family home and condo and things like that, townhome. There's also what you call multifamily. So when we look at our 401k contribution, what makes the 401k so appealing is not the money that you put in, but the employer matching of your contributions. That's what makes the 401k appealing. So when you look at a multifamily, think of a multifamily as similar to an employer matching contribution for your 401k. So say, for instance, you have a home valued at $500,000, right? Multifamily, maybe the home value may be $750,000, right? And you're thinking, well, that's a lot more money. But think about that. Now you have $250,000 more possible equity in that home, but you have somebody contributing into that equity in the form of a renter. So now you may live on one side and you have a renter living on the other side. And so now they're paying down your mortgage and contributing to your equity that you're accumulating in that particular property. So, that's when I think, I start thinking of, and then, the multifamily property values, they don't fluctuate as much as single family homes, a little bit different market because there's investors involved. But that's something to think about as well, because like Nagone said, or maybe it was Mike, one of the most Americans built their wealth through real estate. That's one of their biggest ways of building wealth.
That is the vehicle. That's the vehicle for wealth building in this country. That is the biggest wealth vehicle that you have.
So when people say, well, I'm saving money because I'm renting. Well, at the end of the day, the money that you're actually investing is only your money. There is no matching contribution from an outside entity, right? You don't have a renter. You don't have a renter contributing to you accumulating equity in the property that you own. So all that equity, so whatever money that you're investing is out of your pocket and your pocket only. So
yeah, I mean, like multifamily, that is really more of an income based type of investment, because a multifamily home, multifamily dwelling, if you will, is not really so much for massive appreciation. It's really the income that you're getting on that property. It's ultimately paid off, and once that property's paid off, then you really make that much more money because now you don't have a loan or you don't have a mortgage on top of that property, and then it becomes just more pure profit. Is the only thing that you're taking off is the overhead and any upkeep, and then that becomes you're making that much more money. So it's an income generator.
And a lot of the upkeep of that particular property is deductible as well.
Is deductible, and then it's also at the end of the day, it's also to be underwritten by your tenants. But a single family home, that is an appreciation move for you to build wealth. Personally in your home, and there has been some risk. Like the housing market, it has come back to some degree. There's still a lot of toxic assets that are still in the market right now. That's problematic. You still have homes that are technically underwater right now. There's a lot of issues. There's a lot of stuff that this thing has not been cleared up. I mean, even though you don't hear about it in the news, but there's still a lot of issues going on. You have new communities opening up. Like if you look at, you look in Colorado, Denver, or you look in Phoenix, Arizona, so forth, where they're just rolling out, all kind of new, new stuff, and the housing prices are going up $300,000-$400,000. It's looking bubblicious to me, man. I think that some of that's going to have some problems in the next year or two. I think there's going to be some issues there. So timing and where you are all plays a role. But I think people are generally being cautious of, buying houses, jumping into the dream and all of that. People are being cautious about that. There was a lot of risk and a lot of people got burned. A lot of people did, though. A lot of people made money. A lot of people did get badly hurt, and and that's still out there.
But one thing to mention though is that for people that buy single family homes, it's a way to build wealth, but you have to bear in mind that your wealth is tied up as equity in that particular home, and accessing it, either compromises that asset, or you have to actually offload the asset as in a form of home sale. So either you get a home equity line of credit or some type of credit line, maybe a second mortgage, whatever the case may be,
and
in order
people
to tap into that equity
from that. But I hear what you're saying. People are afraid of that now because that got a lot of people. They're terrified of that, and with good reason, and with good reason. The people who did the best with their houses are those who took out no debt on their homes. They didn't use their house as an ATM at all. They didn't have second mortgages on them. They didn't have credit lines on their homes. They didn't do that. They sat back and just did their any capital investments for all they made in the house. They paid out of pocket in cash, fixed their house up, kept it going, let their mortgages go out, amortize out the way they were supposed to. Bang zoom, they were straight. They were straight. A lot of people actually were able to pay their homes off a lot early because they didn't do that. Those who got caught up in other stuff, a lot of people got ripped up. So you still had to manage that asset very intelligently as well. And that name of the game was to have very little debt on that house, and really do not take out on another mortgage. Keep the debt as low as possible. Like keep your overhead as low as possible at home. Savings high, debt low. Overhead low. And those are people who made out the best in the housing market on their personal homes. So it's you got to be kind of smart. You got to be intelligent in this market. You have to be thinking. But I would say, do not get into second mortgaging your home and taking out lines of equity and credit lines on your house and starting to spend down on your equity and so forth. I think those are exceedingly bad moves if you're going to play in this game. Exceedingly bad, especially what I foresee coming up in the next 2 to 3 years. I think it's exceedingly bad. Those who have multifamily dwellings, like you're saying, that my brother and I and a few others that we know are getting into. So that's slightly different story, and that's a growth market because a lot more people are going to be renting. So go ahead.
No, I was just going to say before I pass off to DE Raptor. I wonder if you can get a second mortgage on a dumpster.
I'm sure.
If that's
no, because you have to have something that the bank considers an asset, and I don't think the dumpster is considered an asset by any banking entity.
Well, like composting toilet, you should give it a
maybe not an asset. Yeah, maybe not an asset, but an asset, right? Hey, DE Raptor, do you have anything you want to add before we go to the next article?
Well, yes, the price of houses are rising, but was it Supertrends? He said that the market. Somebody said that it's topping out like it was in 2008, 2006. But one of the underlying problems with this housing market, the current housing market, is that even though the price of houses are going up, a lot of those houses that were, let's say, sold from 2000, before 2012, 2013, the owners in those houses are refinancing the houses. The banks are giving them extensions on their loans. The price of houses might be going up, but they still owe more on the house than the cost of the house.
Facts, underwater. Facts. They got them.
And these millennials are seeing this kind of problems. A lot of people are seeing this.
That's right.
And decide they don't want the problems with it.
That's right. They're looking at it. They're seeing it. They're learning.
Serious. A lot of people. It wasn't long ago. This kind of thing used to happen like every 30 years or so, and suddenly it started happening every
10
14
years.
years.
Yeah.
And now it's down to 10 years.
Yeah.
So it's not now every other generation that experiences. It's now every generation, and the people from my generation are saying to my kids, "Look, don't buy a house. Either you live with me or rent a house until the market drops, and then I buy you a house, or then you buy a house."
Oh well,
Because
if your son lives with you, then he's not select.
well, then any woman who the woman who finds him, I can tell you, she's got a lot. If he's non-select, then if I was him, I'd say good riddance.
Hmm.
You know,
Let,
but
let,
that's the manosphere. The manosphere is like that. We
yeah,
have our own rules.
well, select versus non-select. That's how they see it, man.
Exactly.
You got a 96-month car loan, you're select.
Yep. I mean, if before you, it's like you're spending money to look good, and it's like you're buying a house. It's not somewhere for you to live. It's a car that I told my son. I said, look, don't buy a car. Don't buy a new car because so and so and so and so. You know, look at these steps. Your car is parked either in front of your house or in front of the place you work for 16, maybe 18 hours out of the day.
Mhm.
Nobody's driving it. It's just rusting and depreciating. Do you want that?
Let me jump to this next article. We don't have so much time left. There's a theory that stingy millennials. Oh, this one's from CNBC.com. There's a theory that stingy millennials are to blame for the sluggish economy. Cheap bastards. Millennials, the selfie obsessed, avocado toast loving generation, might be behind slower economic growth, according to a research note last week from Raymond James. This generation, scarred by the financial crisis, is saving more than free spending boomers did before them, and it's causing an economic imbalance. According to data from the St. Louis Federal Reserve, the current US personal savings rate, defined as income minus spending, is 8.1% as of August. By comparison, in 1996, the rate was 5.7%. The higher savings rate, we believe, has had disinflammatory impact, driving the relatively slow growth and low inflation in this recovery, causing the incentives for excess supply and disinflation and deflation biases in the global economy. Raymond James analyst Tavis McCourt wrote in a note to clients Thursday. One of the earliest financial lessons people learn is that saving early and often is key. However, while saving is beneficial for individuals, a slowdown in spending hurts businesses and therefore the economy. Since the recession, supply increases have continued, which coupled with a higher savings rate has led to excess supply seemingly everywhere in the economy, McCourt notes. This leads to frustratingly low growth, deflationary biases in prices, excess supply, and increasing debt from the supply side attempts to improve the situation because the savings rate is going higher, he said. McCourt chalks up the increase in savings to a generational change. Following the financial crisis, millennials began to save more, and this habit is becoming increasingly important as they replace baby boomers as the primary income and spending generators. The U.S. consumer has had enough, so they are saving instead of purchasing like last generation, limiting demand growth, he said. And it's not only a problem in the United States, China also has a relatively high personal savings rate, which hurts the global outlook given the size of the country's economy and its rapid rate of growth. So what we have is a global increase in personal savings rate, which has caused excessive supply and increases globally, and U.S. consumers wanting to save more, which makes trade deficits less severe than they would be otherwise, growth to be slower than expected for both economies, and inflation to be lower than what it would be otherwise, the courts explained. So what it seems like to me is that millennials are holding on to every dollar that comes in like they're supposed to.
Yeah, well, what do you expect? I mean, what did they see?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of millennials saw houses foreclosed. They saw their parents struggling, all kind of crazy. They saw a lot of ill shit. So what they saw, I mean, I think a lot of people, they're shell shocked. A lot of people are still, they're PTSD, man. A lot of people saw craziness. They ain't going out like that. They ain't going out like that, man. I mean, what do you expect? So that's why I sit here and I say, hey, listen, we saw this. A lot of these kids saw this stuff. These millennials are not stupid from the standpoint of well, we saw it, but we didn't believe it. No, they saw this shit. They believed it. They lived it. They saw what it was about. They ain't going out like that, man. They're just not going down that way. So they're gonna save their money. And like I say, you know, millennials are smart. You moving with your folks. Save your money for the next 36 months, and then when you launch, and you can buy, if you want to buy a house or whatever, you have the cash in hand to do it. Instead of sitting there getting some long ass mortgage or getting torn out the frame in some other kind of ways, you got to reshift the game. I mean, this is where we're at right now. You know, all this long credit and taking out these big loans and all this stuff. It's, you know, they're getting raped coming out of school. So I mean, what do you expect them to get raped by a house as far as how they're looking at it?
They wouldn't even qualify though, if you really think about it. They don't have enough money to even put down on a mortgage, non-FHA, right? On a non-FHA, on a what kind of loan is that?
FHA?
No, beyond, if not for a non-FHA loan. Come on, you guys buy houses. You should know the term. There's a term for it.
I'm a real estate guy.
Your mic is breaking up a lot, Complex.
Be a standard homeowner's loan.
Yeah, but there's a specific term for it. But anyways, they wouldn't qualify for that because, like I said earlier, you need like a credit score of 680. And most millennials don't even have that, right? They're busy clutching their pearls and whatnot.
But it's not. It's not
so
only that, Mike. Look at all the articles that we were reading tonight. They're telling these people, look, you're not going to get Social Security, so you got to save. You got
It's called a conventional
student
mortgage.
loans. You got student loans that you got to pay off. You got to put into your 401k and all that to save. When you get old, you're not gonna have this, so you gotta have insurance so you gotta save for that. And the people are doing exactly what they tell them to do. But guess what? When they doing what they tell them to do first, now they come in with a shaming tactic. Man, you're supposed to be spending so you can keep the economy going. You're not supposed to be saving it.
Well, because
they're people to do.
Because
all this bad news about what's going to happen to them if they don't save their money. All the terrible things that they're going to happen to them if they don't save their money. And when they save their money, then you come back and say, "Hey, you're not saving. You're not spending."
Well, what's the thing? The economy ran on a lot of debt. They ran on huge debt before. That was a big part of what kind of drove a lot of the market, selling debt. A lot of people have looked at debt and said, your debt to equity ratios, if you want to look at that, and this kind of, no, man, carrying too much debt, you're going to get torn out of the frame. So folks are saying, we're not carrying debt forward. We're not carrying debt. And in fact, what banks are now, right now, are judging people more so on now is not even so much even your credit scores, but your income from your job. That's what they're really rating you on more so now than almost anything, is your ability to pay. And they're looking at that by your income and what kind of job you have. Because I have a friend, his house is paid for, whatever. He was looking to buy actually or help his stepdaughter to actually buy a house. And he's all paid off. His house is paid for, paid in full, PIF. Right? He had another house that he had. His first house he sold, bought this one, paid it off. And the bank was like, they were balking on giving him a mortgage because they were like, well, what's your income looking like,
Mhm.
and his income is okay, but but he's the only one working and his wife doesn't work. So they were like, man, your income ain't right. Your income ain't looking right. And this guy's got like a 760 credit score. Okay, brother's credit's crazy, but at the end of the day, they were like, nah, your income doesn't really match what we're looking for. So they're looking more at income.
Mhm.
They're looking more at what you're bringing in.
Yeah.
The mortgage you guys are talking about is called a conventional mortgage. Hey guys, Joseph.
Hey, what's going on, Joe?
All right, it's called a conventional mortgage. That's when you got to put down 20%. That's what the regular mortgages used to be. I put down a 20%. That doesn't exist anymore now. Like you said,
30.
FHA.
It's 30.
20%.
Well, FHA is
FHA is 3.5%. You can even get grants to get you at 1%.
A conventional mortgage is still 20%.
Yeah. They want 20% down. They want 20%. 20% will get you in.
Yeah, but you can't find anything that's FHA now. I mean, the listing is drying up by the day.
And then it also depends on what the overall cost and then the market that you're in. Like certain markets have a higher limits, and then like the overall cost of it. If the overall cost is like over like $700,000, as far as like what you're planning on financing, you gotta get a jumbo loan.
You gotta split it up.
And then you get what's called a balloon payment, which is crazy.
That killed a lot of people. That caused a lot of houses to come flying back. And they consider that predatory, and they sold that to a lot of older folks, black people, and so they did all that, and these balloon payments came up, and they were insane. People just didn't have that kind of money on them, and it was great. So a lot of houses came flying back.
You know what I'll tell you, because I own an apartment building, right? And these millennials, like you said, they're not buying homes, but same time, they're paying a lot of money to live that lifestyle that millennials like to live. They like the nice stuff. I get, the apartments that I got, like over the course of 8 months, I've been able to increase the rent so much just because I made the place look real nice. Like I doubled the rents on some of my units. My other units have gone up by like 50% of what the rent used to be. The old owners was like, nah, you can't get that kind of rent. You can't get that kind of rent. And I'm like, well, let's see. I already did my research. I'm like, yo, wherever you are, people are willing to pay for nice stuff. So we just made the apartments real nice in comparison to what's in the area. And all our tenants are millennials paying out the ear for rent, where like the average rent, like for instance, where I'm at, right? I'm in Georgia. I'm in South Georgia. And the average rent for like a 2-bedroom is like $600, $500. My units are going for $1,000 a month. You understand? Like that's twice. $1,000 a month. The houses down there cost like 70 grand, but they don't want a house. They'd rather pay me $1,000 a month than buy a house for like 70 or 80 grand, have a mortgage for like 300, 400, but they'd rather pay $1,000 a month. I got
let me ask you.
Are
2 or 3 of them living in the room? Because these millennials,
they
stack up
roommates.
They stack up on each other. 2 or 3 live in the room, and they're happy with that, man. They're happy with that, and they'll all.
We don't do like it's one person per bedroom. So we got roommates, right? We got like bankers that are roommates. We got some flight attendants that are roommates. But they have a nice place. They're paying crazy rent, but they want a nice place. I give them that. And my valuation on my property is ridiculous because of the way that I've been able to increase the rents by just making some nice paint, some nice fixtures, nice appliances. That's it.
It sounds to me like the last article fits your narrative then, right? So the lifestyle renters, right? These millennials who are just lifestyle renters, man. Even the car market has gone to this sort of perspective. I think Audi has something called Silverline, where they basically have a car sharing program. You can rent an Audi A4, not rent an Audi A4, but share an Audi A4 for a certain amount of money per month. Cadillac has a car sharing program coming out. I think it's already started in New York. Get you get a Cadillac. What do you call those CT6s? Whatever it is, ATS for short money.
I got the CTS, and they've got a whole new deal, man, for where you can just rent a car literally damn near month by month, change it up every year. They've got a whole I'll get the brochure I have the brochure upstairs. I'll take a look at it, but because I'm turning my car in April, and they're like, yo, man, we got all this, so it's like I could be driving a new Caddy every couple of months or so, by the way they have this thing set up. So it's almost like you don't even need to buy a car. That's the kind of game that they're playing right now. It's different game all day long.
Yeah, everybody's fake select now. Everybody got a nice house, man. You got a nice car, but it's not really yours. You don't really own, no mortgage. You just rent, living in someone's pantry. Fucking cans of soup above you, but you got a little cot in the middle.
Remember that article that you read the other day? This guy who was, what was it? Was it article or somebody said his girlfriend rolled up on him. He was living in a storage.
He was living in a U-Haul storage can, basically a dumpster almost. But it was a storage room, and he had a Dodge Challenger out, sitting outside, parked outside. Man. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Man, he was laying up in there. The girl pulled the door open, like she was looking for some old furniture. She's like, "What you doing up in there?" He jumped out of the bed. Shit was off the chain. But anyway, that's just kind of that's how folks are rolling. Oh man.
All right, let me get to this next one from Jalapnik. It's truck month, but no trucks are coming. It'll be a solemn truck month at Chevy and GMC dealers this Trucktober, as parts shortages from the ongoing United Auto Workers strike forced its last North American pickup plant to shut down this week. While GM's Flint and Fort Wayne truck production facilities are staffed by UAW workers who stopped working one day, one of the strike. The plant in Salao, Mexico, was still cranking out about 1,300 pickups per day. That's a lot of fucking vehicles, man. Though the company's workers in Mexico aren't striking, the Salao plant needs parts from UAW staff facilities to keep running. On October 1st, after exhausting its available supply of parts, GM idled the plant. As Automotive News points out, that means GM is starting truck month without the ability to produce new trucks. Even still, Chevy is aggressively incentivizing the Silverado for truck month, offering up to $9,510 off the Silverado 1500. Clearly, the company's truck supply is still strong enough to support high dollar incentives, but as more plants outside the US grind to a halt and suppliers are forced to trim production, GM's feeling the strike more and more every day. It causes a serious truck supply problem that's going to cost GM big, per Automotive News.
They're gonna be giving cars away after a while, man.
Daily losses started at less than $10 million per day, the firm said, but will catapult to $90 million per day if the strike extends to a month. $90 million a day. You can't possibly.
No way.
You can't possibly sustain something like that.
No
Those
way.
type of losses, man. That's If GM was hoping to retake the second place shot from Ram in the full size truck segment, that's very unlikely at this point. Ram was already beating the Silverado by over 52,000 units for the year. This would be the first calendar year, even in which the Silverado lost to the Ram. Ty City, what's your take on this?
I'm driving right now. Dodge just had a redesign. I'm pretty sure that's what got a lot to do with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to chime in on this? Yeah, I don't know, man. It's I don't know. This doesn't looks kind of rough here, man. I don't, what do you say? 90 million a day? Is that
Yes.
what you
Yes.
said? Oh, man.
For GE,
Well, I think it just opens up the opportunity for other entities to capture market share.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all that is. That just creates an opportunity. Chevrolet will have to scale back. Somebody else will have to step in and take advantage of that market share. Perhaps even, alternative fuel sources, particularly electric. That's the big thing right now. Hydrogen fuel cell doesn't seem to have much traction, but definitely electric. If anybody wants to step in and use it as an opportunity, because I believe, again, I'm not sure, but Tesla, perhaps even Hyundai, is looking into trying to get some electric vehicles to the market. So now you have an opportunity, because a lot of the people that buy these trucks don't need trucks. They're buying trucks because they like to sit high. They're buying trucks because they associate large size with value. They think that they see a large size. They think they're getting something a lot for the money. Just like women, are attracted to large men. People are attracted to large vehicles.
Large men being select, not large men who are non-select.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah,
would you consider a Honda Ridgeline non-select?
Definitely non-select. You need at least like a Chevrolet. A Ford F-150 would be considered semi-select. Now, if you get the King Ranch or the Platinum, it's definitely select.
Yeah, that's select. Yeah, definitely select. Or some of these new
Denali.
Or I was even looking at the Jeeps, the SR
Gladiator,
SRT, the Gladiator. Yeah, that's highly select.
Yeah, but if you have a Ridgeline, then you don't get a Denali. You just be in denial.
You just in denial.
Hey, you know what though? Hey, I'm not gonna lie. I'm starting to see Ridgelines more. Like I saw a black guy with a Ridgeline on rims. It just really shocked me. Like I even think, like, most people, black males are not even shopping for Ridgelines.
No,
especially those that plan to put rims on it. So it's kind of odd.
To me, the Ridgeline was like the what's that ugly Ford pickup they came out with? The ugly Chevy pickup they came out with.
Avalanche.
Yeah. Oh, that thing was.
That Avalanche. That shit was terrible. I don't know what they were thinking about.
Awful.
That was horrible. I don't know what they were thinking. But why did
I mean, look, Nagam, Mike. We have to be there. There is a market for ugly vehicles.
You couldn't tell
Ty
niggas
City,
nothing in them Denali,
Ty City
bro.
chimed in right on time. As soon as I said ugly vehicles, Ty City chimed in.
You couldn't tell niggas that with them Denalis, bro. They had an Escalade with the back chopped off. If you ask them.
Yeah, the Denali. People love that Denali. I ain't gonna front. They love that car.
You guys don't understand
big as a
that
house.
these vehicles have a unique taste.
Yeah.
Only select people can accept taste like that.
Now, to me, you're not really select unless you get like a flower car from a funeral home and put dubs on it. For real. Those things got low mileage. They don't need they don't have a whole lot of wear and tear on them. And they're unique, man.
Driving a hearse.
Yeah.
This is transport, man. This is really hearse.
You can just pull up on the block and be like, yo, I'd be catching mad bodies, man.
Mad body. And then you have those rims that keep spinning when you stop. Oh man, that's exactly.
That's Ty City for you.
Ty City, you got some spree wells?
Ty City got some spree wells.
Though, guys, seriously though, with this it's not just GM, but also General Electric's having this issue. And what I feel is very simple. Is a oversupply, man. How many cars can you produce and how much people could buy? People already see that
Problem.
this thing is coming to an end.
Uh,
And in 2008, what did they have to do? They had to do chapter 11, I believe, debt restructuring, right? Because they can't keep all this debt, right? They're gonna have to go and restructure everything because they can't carry it. Just like General Electric, they're losing tons of money. They're not actually putting any more money towards their pensions because they can't afford to carry all this debt. And when the
GE,
bubble
people keep
pops,
forgetting. GE got bailed out. They had a bailout. They were done. They were done in 2008. They
Yeah.
were
all the car
toast.
companies got a bailout. And what's gonna
But
happen? They're
GE
gonna
is
have to go.
GE's an electric company. Remember that?
GE is an electric company, and they're involved in insurances and everything else like that. But
They're involved in everything.
caught up. They got caught up. They got caught up in that banking crap. They
Yeah.
got hurt. They had to get bailed out, man. And they've been toast ever since.
But wasn't there banking? That banking, what's called the most profitable at GE at the time?
It was profitable, but they were writing a lot of crazy loans out there. Writing a lot of crazy shit out there. GE was doing a lot of financing for. They were underwriting cars, houses. They were underwriting a lot of shit.
Yeah.
They were doing that, and they were writing a lot of crap. They were getting a lot of fees based on that, but they were writing a lot of shit loans, man, and they got blown up. They got blowed up when a lot of stuff came flying back on them. And then they need to get bailed out. No, people just thought it was just the banks, but GE and a few other companies got hit that were involved in that. And they got lit up. That's what I said. They got lit up. And then they still have a lot of toxic assets that they're holding that they haven't gotten rid of. The company's been in bad shape ever since the crash. They haven't really ever fully come back.
No, and they don't know what to do with all these pensions. Got to pay somebody.
Mhm.
But they don't know what to do with that.
I mean, there are companies that can buy Microsoft and all that can buy that. Can buy that right out. They can buy it. Amazon can buy that right out. They have that kind of cash to do it. So I think we're going to be seeing stuff like that going on. So shit like that's going to be happening.
Well, they have to buy pieces of the company, right? So you buy GE Health or GE Military, right? Because a lot of people don't know that GE makes guns too. So
yeah. But GE may not make it. Is what I'm saying. I'm saying GE they
own it.
They may not make it. I mean, they're a government favorite, but they may not make it.
Yeah.
And they're not a company that's too big to fail. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they may go the way of Radio Shack, man.
It's possible.
All right, let me read this last one. All right, this one is from Bloomberg.com. Even high-income millennials fear they'll need to work forever. Oh man, this is behind the paywall, but I'll read a little caption. Explore half of high-income millennials ages 30 to 34 fear they'll work forever because they won't be able to save enough to retire. I thought we just read an article before that millennials were saving too much. Now they won't have enough to retire with, and they're not getting a pension either for most of their jobs.
So if you scare the people with articles like this, that they'll need to work forever, what do you expect the people will do when they're going to save? If they got any sense, they're going to save.
They're going to save.
You know what I'm saying? And then you're going to try to shame them into saying, well, you're saving too much. You got to spend some of that money. And then when they get to be old, they'll be laughing and say, you see, you should have saved money. We told you that.
Well, because you're not really select unless you spend the money. So if you keep saving it, man, you're just non-select. You're just beta, and that's the problem. We're trying to create more alpha males out here, and the problem is these guys are, financially incels or something like that. Financial incels. keep hoarding their money, keeping their hand in their pockets, scrunching their dollars.
Oh, they don't want
financial incels. I love that shit.
So they're supposed to spend all the money and then go through the neighborhood killing snakes to eat,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Eat the squirrels. Get that nut.
Get that nut. Get that nut.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I was talking to my father. This was when he called me a month. And I was, talking about my plan, for the next, 3-4 years. And essentially, the moves that I'm making are based on the fact that, my concern is with retirement, because with the market fluctuations, a lot of people's retirement is based on 401ks. And depending on what the market is doing at the time you're retiring, it could actually affect the amount of money that you're able to, access, for retirement. So my thing is, I'd rather look at something that I know will be commensurate with the economy. That's real estate, and in particular, multifamily real estate. That's the one I have. I have a multifamily in contract right now, a 4-unit that was actually converted to a 5-unit, actually in Seattle. So we're not talking about outside the city, but actually in the city. So people who need to have access to a job in the city, they can actually live at the apartment that I'm purchasing and not have to have a vehicle if they don't want to have a vehicle, which a large percentage of people in Seattle don't actually have a vehicle. But so with something like that, it kind of positions me to where I have a source of income, because even now the property will cash flow with an actual loan the way it is now. But at some point down the line, say for instance, if I want to retire in 10 years, maybe 20 years, whatever the case may be, depending on the amount of equity in the property, I can actually refinance, have a lower actual monthly payment, and so now I have a greater cash flow. So that way,
are you carrying a mortgage on that house right now? Are you carrying a mortgage on that property?
I will be. It's like a brand new purchase.
Okay.
Yeah. And so at some point down the line, when equity is accumulated, then you can refinance if you need access to more cash flow. Say for example, like, well, I'm going to stop working at this point, so now I need more cash flow. You can refinance, and then you'll have more cash flow, because your actual monthly expenses will be lessened because you're paying less of a mortgage. So that's just something to think about. It presents those options, at least have those options available to you at some point. So for those people that are thinking about, I'm not gonna have enough money to retire, look at some type of passive income.
Yeah. Exactly. If you're gonna, like I said, it would be smart if if you're gonna buy a house, like if I was a millennial today buying a house, and I wouldn't just buy a house, I would buy an income property and stay in one room, have my little rack downstairs or whatever, and my little corner joint, and then have, subdivide that place and have 4 or 5 units in there, and that's your retirement money. That's how people in the old days used to operate.
Hey, Super Trick, have you considered doing a LLC or incorporating?
I think Super Triz might be driving. He might have thought you were talking about LL Cool J.
Oh no, I'm in the office, but this generator, I forgot to mute my mic, because this generator makes all this noise. There's a generator next to the building.
Mm-hmm.
If you're gonna go in like multi tenancy, continue buying stuff like that, you should do LLC or go incorporate.
Yeah, under a real estate holding corporation. That would always be smart. And just in case, if you do get married and you have your stuff in an LLC, and it's a corporate entity, she can't come in there and fucks with you.
Even for those who plan to be even those who plan to be confirmed bachelors, LLCs are smart, because in the event that there's some type of litigation from your tenants, you get to protect at least some of your other assets. You don't want to have all the assets tied to you personally, because they can start coming after your personal assets. But if it's LLC, it's different.
That's right. It gives you a corporate veil, give you protection. Always, yeah. That's always smart. But but the overall idea when you're talking about is pretty smart. And I think the millennials, they saw the ass kicking. A lot of people took. Just a little less than 10 years ago, they ain't trying to go out like that. A lot of these guys who were now 20, 21, 22, they were 10, 11. I mean, they were kids. They saw it. They were old enough to know what was going down, and it was shocking. So folks don't want that. You know, it's just like people that I know, like the older folks that I know who grew up during the Depression times. You know, they could be wealthy as hell, but they always have, almost all of them that I know have big refrigerators downstairs full of food, full of meat and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, damn, you're not gonna eat all this stuff, but they hoard this because it was their memories back during the Depression times. You know, and they just, you know, they don't want to see that. Most of these folks, of course, now are old and many of them are dying off. So many of you wouldn't know them, but guys in my generation, all that who knew these people, who the older generation, who grew up during the Depression, that's one thing they had. They could have $1 million. They'd be downstairs and they would have a big basement area with a big giant refrigerator with all kind of food. Just in case, you know, just in case. You know?
Yeah, that's what gave proliferation to the deep freezer. It was to store all those types of foods in your house.
Yeah. So, and you saw and D. Well, I don't know if D was during the Great Depression. You probably weren't. I don't know if a lot of you folks were here in the United States, but certainly in the States, you know, that's how it was, man. I mean, that's how it was. A lot of older folks. It was all about food, and they were wealthy, but that fear of just not having enough to eat. It's something that they never gave up. It was like their steaks was just as much worth their money. It was like that's how that was. It was like you can't eat your money, but you have to have food to eat, and we're never starving again. And that never got away from them.
Yeah, my grandparents in Barbados, Bridgetown, still had, you know, up until they died, they still had chickens and roosters in their yard, and they still grew their food and stuff like that. That's just the way how they. I mean, they remember it, like you said. They remember all that type of stuff. And
no, I remember, you know, all the people, you know, that I grew up with, all the older folks, and you know, and I knew my parents. They knew the DeQueer family, and these guys were very wealthy, Black people. But they came up real hard in the Depression. And a lot of white families I knew as well, who had money. Brian Roberts and all of them. They all their families were wealthy, and I saw the same thing. I was like, what the fuck? You go around there, they had these big freezers with all kind of food in there. Black, I don't give a. I said, these are Depression era people. Yeah, that's just they never, and they were living in big homes, big dough.
Yeah.
So I think the millennials will come up the same way.
Well, the millennials maybe to a certain extent.
As far as understanding how they need to save and they need to do certain kind of things, and I see how they are because I even look at my boy. You know, I mean, not that we had things crazy, but he doesn't spend a lot. He's thrifty that way. And I even see my grandson. I was like, yeah, man, I'm getting ready to cook you a pair of Jordans. Grandpa, you don't need to spend no money on them Jordans. I ain't like
when you take into consideration, like, you have to put an asterisk next to Black millennials, right? Because I see a lot of Black males running around with 20 pairs of Jordans and white tees, and
we do some of that. We do see some of that.
Yeah, I don't know how much they're saving by just wearing a white tee and by having $150 pair of Jordans. Ty City, you have any input on it?
Oh shit! Oh shit! Go ahead, man. Go ahead. Let it rip.
No, Ty City's driving. Ty City's driving right now.
Well, you know what though? I'm what I believe it was Joseph who has the building. You know, I'm all for like I'm in the same school of thought as he's in. Like, yeah, community, conceptually community sounds nice, but I'm about to gentrify like a mother sucker. Let me just say that. I'm going in there. This is business. I'm doing my, I have a budget that I've set aside for renovations. I'm doing some immediate renovations as soon as possible. Unfortunately, a lot of the units are completely leased out, and I can't get them out of there because of these tenant laws. So I got to wait till their leases expire. But as the leases expire, the units will be renovated and the rents will be raised. Period. That's all there is to it. And if you can't afford it, it's not the building for you.
Now, are you and your dad going to work on it together, or is that something you're going to do on your own?
No. I'm not doing any work because it doesn't make financial sense. I make more money hourly than it would be worth it to actually do the work myself. And plus, I'm not like, there's certain things I can do, but I mean, I'm doing like floors. I'm having new kitchens installed. Like, I'm doing stuff like that. So that right there, I'm just gonna contract.
Save
that
a lot
stuff
of money.
out.
Save a lot of money doing it yourself. I mean, we did the whole house renovation that we did and sold it. We did everything ourselves, and it saved tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars. Really did.
Yeah, but if I did it myself, it's gonna look like I saved tens of thousands of dollars. That's what it's gonna look like.
Well, it all depends on who you have working with you. Because if you have someone who's working with you who knows what they're doing, you can put cabinets up, you can put floors in, you can do bathrooms and have them looking highly butter laid.
You know, it'll be ill. It'll be real ill if Super Triz had like Seattle PBS or whatever they have out there, public broadcast system, do like instead of Bob Vila, it'd be like Super Triz, this old trap house, and
This old trap house.
You're walking around with like a football helmet or something like that. Watch your head, bro. OSHA laws, OSHA.
Hey, you joking? But I actually looked at I looked at an old trap house. It was an old duplex trap house, and I mean, it was rats. It was crazy when we went there. I said, I said, I'm looking for something value add, but I don't want a complete fixer upper. Like value add, yes.
Something like that's got to be gutted. You got to gut that and build them. And if you do that, and if you're able to get materials pretty good, you can put a lot of work in yourself and really know what you do, and have somebody working really with you. We can have the joint look highly butter laid, save a lot of money, and your top end on that will come out a lot higher.
But see, I'm working 60 hours a week, Nagone.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of you got to put a lot of work in. I mean, I've done this. I'm doing this myself. I know what this is about. I understand exactly where you're coming from. But what you're doing and how you're doing it. I mean, you're in an area where, the top end on a house and stuff like that is relatively cheap from what we're doing up here. So it's cheap. So that's good. For you. But still, it's not so much what you it's what you put in. It's what you can make out of it, and that's the key. So I'm following you there. I would love to see the projects you're working on. I'd like to get a nice look at that.
I may need to come to Manhattan, or I don't know if you're in Manhattan, but I may need to come to the tri-state area and do an internship with Nagone on how to renovate houses.
I mean, it's a lot of sweat equity. So I work on my hands. We gonna work.
Can you imagine Super Triz coming up there with some Ryobi tools and shit? Like, nigga, we do the vault over here, man.
Man. But make sure you got a do-rag on when you're working with us, man.
How much I got a what?
A do-rag.
Man, had that do-rag on, fam.
Oh man, listen. I got about 10 do-rags. And listen, I only wear a wave enforcer do-rag. So I don't wear none of that cheap stuff.
Okay. And when we finish and we go out to get something to eat, take the rag off and let me see the waves.
Oh, okay. Hey, wave check.
So we straight.
Oh man, they coming to get Super Triz?
They come to get you, man. They heard you talking.
No, they come to get Ty City. His tag's expired on his car.
Super Triz. So this is Joseph again. I just want to say, you don't want to hold no hammers, man. You just want to cut the checks, all right?
No. Actually, I would do some of the work myself, but it's just that.
That's if you know what you're doing. That's if you really.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what I'm doing. So
you can at least rake the leaves. You can at least rake the leaves in the yard.
You don't do nothing, bro. You're just going to collect those checks. Listen, all you got to do, and I manage my properties from New York, all right? And I don't manage them. Basically, I'll tell you what's going on. So we have a property manager, but property managers don't care about the expenses. You know what I'm saying? They just care about their fees. So what I do, I manage all the expenses. So if there's an issue, I take care of the issue because I'm going to make sure that I pay the lowest money to get the problem fixed. I'm going to get it fixed quick. I'm going to get it fixed perfectly, but I'm not going to just, like a property manager would just, they'll pick the first name out the book and they'll just charge you whatever, But in regards to our renovations, man, like, I'm happy I don't live next to the properties because I'll probably be on site every day because I'm a control freak. But we just hire people and then we hire other people to watch the first people. And, we pay them a nice tip if they do it on time and to spec. And if they don't, what I'm saying, we cut them. We try to hire black people all the time, which is good. But, what I'm saying, it's challenging, right? It's challenging. But at the same time, I like the fact that I can help out black people when I can. But it's challenging. Let's just say that. But With the renovations, I hired it out. We get a quote. We have a budget. We knock it out. We bring someone else in to check the work. If things are missing, they just go through it and touch it up, and then we get the best qualified tenant in there, high income, great credit score, and keep it moving.
Well, like I said, that's if if you don't like a brother and all stuff. We know how to put in bathrooms. We know how to put in kitchens. We know how to do this stuff. You put that in the house. That may cost you maybe $3,000 or $4,000 in overall materials just to do it all right. And you can put that on the house. You can make 25, 30 grand on that, on a $3,000 investment into the home, and put the work in yourself. That's the kind of return you're looking at on that kind of situation. That's if you know how to do it yourself. If you don't know how to do it yourself, you pay out. You make a little bit less on it. You work it that way. But I just say, the sweat equity part of the game, being able to do a lot of stuff yourself saves a lot of money, and you make a lot more money on the top end. And that's all I'm saying. The way you're doing it is certainly fair enough, right?
Yeah. When you got a lot of apartments,
who me? No,
it's not what you're trying to do.
Well, yeah. Well, like my cousin, what does he have? He has, it was dad's property and all that. They have 150 units. So, so they're constantly, doing a lot, and he's got a crew to do a lot for him. And then, one of his buildings, he had a real issue where he was trying to piecemeal it, and it wasn't working. So they had to really do some more. They had to come in there, and he had to bite the bullet, put a lot of money in there, and get a real serious crew and just overhaul everything. And it cost him a lot of dough. It came back on him, but he was trying to manage it that way as well. It was tough, So you gotta be smart about this stuff. You gotta know where the money in it. So yeah, it's there's a lot involved. A lot involved in real estate. There's a lot involved, but it's a good business. I like it. So, but there's a lot involved. So I hear where you're coming from. You won't hear me say anything against what you're saying at all.
No. We actually ran over a little bit. We need to get to the Joker review about white incels and bed winches. So we're gonna jump to that that live stream real quick, man. We're gonna end this.
The Joker review. Oh no,
sounds good. I did see that movie too. I saw it.
Yeah.
Oh, you did see it?
Yeah, I saw it. I saw Joker. Yeah.
Did you? What did?
No, we're gonna save all that for the next live stream, man. It's only gonna be, it's gonna be right now. I'm gonna end this right now, and then we're gonna jump to the next one.
Okay. All right. Okay.